Da-da-dum. Da-da-dum. Hello, everybody. How is everyone? We are supposed to have one hell of a weekend weather here. Wow, this was surprising. I barely removed, and it blew up. Thank God I was holding it. I would have received it in my face. Wow, I got surprised here for this big fin du monde beer. I was not expecting that. That tells you that when you open a bottle of champagne or a bottle of beer that has this type of cork, better hold it. I really, man. Okay, emotions are gone. So hey everybody, welcome aboard. This is the live show, and hopefully you will enjoy today's show. We got a new little radio to show you guys, and Elizabeth through email says hello, and I don't have my phone, so I guess I'll have no phone for it. So don't send me emails to show anything, cause it seems that I don't have my phone. It must be somewhere. And hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Hope that everyone is going well. And here's Mr. Paul. And for some reason, there's the settings. I don't know what I did. Probably from the beer. Here we go. Mr. Paul the Cat saying hello. So, my beer opened up in a very explosive way. Hey, everybody, welcome aboard. This is the radio show, Shortwave radio show. We're here on Fridays. I'm actually listening to some guys chatting via D-Star on my new little... So this is a D-Star repeater, 446925. Sounds very robotic. And on my new Icom IC-R30. So I'm having fun playing around with this today. And of course, a lot of videos will be coming up, I can tell you. So welcome everybody. This is the Shortwave Radio Show. We are here twice a week on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, 20 UTC. And on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific. That is 0 UTC. And we're here to talk about radio in general. So like I was saying, Elizabeth has said hi already, and she has some questions that she wants me to cover on today's show. And we'll go through the questions that I actually noted down. So, it's interesting questions. You know, I mean, we all have questions from time to time of things we just didn't grasp or didn't, understand at some point. So anyways, we'll answer that. And, of course, there's a beautiful chat where a lot of people are chatting along, having fun, and basically just Paul trying to put his scent on the microphone. And where we basically have people talking radio, answering questions of others, or asking questions. And of course, there's a Facebook group that goes with that. If you like what we have here, if you like the wonderful people in the chat room, there's a Facebook group called the official SWL channel, same name as the channel here. And Paul is trying to position himself in some way to sleep on me, probably. So here we go. I'm just going to Push it like this, and here we go, Mr. Paul. And let's put the camera back up. There we go. So, Facebook group is kind of a complement or an extension of this. If you like the, camaraderie, if you like the friendship here, if you like, the way that things are happening, well, the Facebook group is wonderful people having fun, sharing what they're listening to, and posting, pictures and videos of their radios and so on. So it is, yes, Paul is here. And of course, we're having a lot of fun on that page, sharing and having really, really a great time, honestly. So this is the place to be. And I'm just going to do a little something here. Everybody wants to see, he was looking intensely at, the camera and everything. So anyways, the Facebook group is a great place to be. And why is this blood pressure monitor showing up on the screen? I'm going to put it somewhere else, because you got to take your blood pressure from time to time. Oh, man. So anyways, the Facebook group is a great place to be because you continue sharing and having fun with radio. And we often talk about how the hobby is very solitary. So, it's kind of cool because you have a chance of continuing throughout the week to share with others. And great, great, great people. It's a wonderful Facebook group. And my name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, northeast part of North America. And we are here to entertain. And yes, I have a beer that opened up in a very, very surprising way. Nice to have all of you here, my friends, talking about Chatroom. We're going to say hello to everybody in the chat. So, here goes. So we're going to talk about the weather here, too. The weather is going to be crazy this weekend. WOHP 1390. Nice to have you on board from warm and rainy Ohio. And he says, by the way, WOHP 1390 refers to the radio station he started working at 54 years ago at age 14. And I'm sure you got some really great memories of that. Nice to have you here, Rick. W8PRR. Randy, Riverside, California. Nice to have you on board. The Vaults, greetings. Nice to have you here from Latvia. And let's put this. So, of course, I'm wearing my shirt, which is Best Friends for Life. Jill and Paul the Cat. Perfect shirt for the day today. So, what else do we have? Matt Ambali in Colorado. Nice to have you here. Mark Cup, Dallas, Texas. Bobby Burgess in Morgan City, Louisiana, USA. Vaults, it says, it's a very misty evening over there. Nick Amendot, nice to have you here from Romania. OFW volunteer. Nice to have you here, my friend, from Saudi Arabia. Ford Golf 1 Yankee Victor Bravo. Nice to have you here, my friend. Sheldon Harvey, nice to have you on board from Greenfield Park, Quebec, where we'll have the same and pretty much the same crappy weather that's supposed to arrive this weekend. Perfect weather to test the antennas, I can tell you that. Scott Cranston, nice to have you here, my friend, from Balmy, Massachusetts. And he's rocking his new RSP-1A. Cool. Dave Todd, nice to have you here from Niagara. And, yeah, everywhere along the, around the, in Ontario, Quebec, and the Laurentian Valley, and the St. Lawrence River, there's going to be some bad weather. Jerry DX, nice to have you here. René Charbonnier, nice to have you on board from the Netherlands. NL13851, nice to have you here from the Netherlands. Creep Brian, nice to have you on board from the land of bratwurst and sauerkraut. PLF Radio, nice to have you here, my friend, from France. Bonjour et bienvenue. Toujours un plaisir. Darkspar74, nice to have you on board. Vault, seems suspicious that beer would try to explode in your hands. Well, no, not that beer. The Fin du Monde is a very, very, it's usually very, very intense when you open a bottle. But it's the first time that it actually has such pressure that without even playing with the cork, it actually just went out, flew away. Brent, nice to have you here from Brockville, Ontario, Canada. And he says hello to Elizabeth. Mountain Valley also says hello to Elizabeth. She's in Regina, Saskatchewan. Menu 41, nice to have you here. Canton, Maine, nice to have you here. Brian Penny, nice to have you on board from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Bobby Burgess says hello to Elizabeth and DX the Cat. Max Strong, nice to have you on board from Michigan. Mike Anna261, nice to have you here, my friend. PLF Radio says, congrats on your Icom IC-R30. Yeah, I really am happy. And boy, there's a learning curve on the radio. There's a lot of stuff. There's some stuff that I got to hang on right away because it's similar to the R20 in its functionality. So there are things that I did right away because I understood the R20, and it's similar in the R30, but there's a lot of stuff. And that thing has extensive menus and all sorts of things that you can change, and it's crazy. Rough Duff McLeod, nice to have you here from Nova Scotia. Pretty cool. We're going to talk about that PLF Radio. I already have a little idea, and we're going to talk about the R30 versus the R20. And I'll get the R20, and at the same time, I'll probably get my phone to make sure I got everything. Cree Bryan says, got my PL380 and some stupid questions prepared for today. We're going to be here for that, so go ahead with the questions. We'll do that, of course. What else do we have? Jerry DX, of course, it's better than the R20. I've got a ton of videos. It's better in certain things, but it's not necessarily better in other things. My first compare is interesting, on especially with the dual VFOs. One of the two VFOs isn't up to par compared to the R20's dual VFOs that actually are both very sensitive. So it's kind of interesting, and I'm trying to learn a little more, but it has interesting features and stuff. We're going to talk about it anyways. Ranjit Darnal, nice to have you here from Nepal. Cool. Randy saying hello to Paul the Cat. Really nice. What else do we have? Today's figures. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Bob T. Nice to have you on board from somewhere in Ohio. Chuck from rainy Columbus, Ohio. Nice to have you on board. Home of Universal Radio, place I spend too much dollars. Yeah, well, you know, probably the equivalent on a that from the time of Radio Shack. I don't know how much money I spent at Radio Shack, but it over the years it's thousands of dollars at Radio Shack for sure. Kevin J. Napalo, WS2H, is the guy behind this beautiful R30. Thank you so much, Kevin, once again. Really nice gift. And was really, it's really a lot of fun to play around with it. Matambale, BBC World Service on 15490. JRDX, well, I got the charging base, put it on. What else do we have? Bill, nice to have you here, Bill, in Victoria, Texas, with a couple of questions. Cool. Ask away. Mika Delmage, nice to have you here. Just check my blood pressure, 122/80. Pretty cool. That's good. I actually bought a new machine because the other one had a leak and didn't work well anymore. So that's why it was here, because it's like a few days old. Mad Radio DXer, nice to have you on board. Ingmar Klenhard, nice to have you here from Bavaria, Germany. Andy Colley, nice to have you on board, my friends. Matt, nice to see Radio Exterior España back on 9690. It wasn't around much recently. Yeah, but I was wondering if it was propagation or just the fact that they weren't on, which we never know because effectively they are often not there. It is right now very good. Actually, the Spain is actually very good right now here on 9690 in Spanish. Really good signal. 9690. MStacks, nice to have you here. Just noticed recently that the Kiwi SDR software now includes DRM processing built in. Absolutely. It's brand new. I haven't tried it yet. I need to try it out. Bill, the monitor behind you is showing an online shortwave radio. No, it's not an online shortwave radio. Which one? Also, is there any place in the entire world who repairs Kenwood receivers? So, for the repair part of things, I mean, some of you in the chat room probably have an idea where maybe our friend Bill can send a Kenwood receiver for repair. And this, what you see here, is not an online radio. It's an actual radio here in my room. It's an RSP1A that you can actually, I think I can show you guys. So, it's right here. It's this little black box that you see here. This is connected through an MLA30 loop antenna outside. This is what you see here. It's an actual radio that is controlled, an SDR that is controlled by my computer. But it is here at my location, and the antenna is just outside on the balcony, and MLA30 loop antenna. So that's what you have. Great, Brian. Since I am a complete newbie, I need to know, who is this Elizabeth everybody was talking about in the beginning of the stream? Oh, Elizabeth is, so she doesn't participate in the chat room. Elizabeth is a visually impaired, and she actually can't really manage to get in the chat room from what I see. But she sends me emails to let us know that she's listening in. And so that is Elizabeth. She has a Kenwood R5000 with the voice synthesizer to know what frequency she's tuned to. She is in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. And so she's really having a lot of fun, and she showed up in the in an email about a couple of months now, maybe not even, and she was saying how she enjoys the live shows, to listen to the live shows, because it is an amazing way to share and have fun with the hobby and the knowledge of radio in general. So that's why everybody's saying hi to Elizabeth. Brian. Matt, nice to have you here in Colorado. We'll try Radio New Zealand Digital and the Kiwi SDR sometime. Their 25 meter and 22 meter signals make it here most days, but can be decoded. Matambali 15770 Radio Prague. Let's check it out here. Let's check it out. Some music right now. Very strong signal from WRMI on 15770. First, yeah, I think Max Estrong might be right. I think Kenwood probably still services old models. I would guess. But I know that there are some other places that do repair radios. So I think this is the first probably the first place I would go to. Kenwood themselves. I would probably rather have Kenwood people play around with the radio than whatever. Or maybe they're gonna direct you to a place where they repair Kenwood devices, for sure. Larry Stevens, nice to have you on board from Ohio. Jeff Williams, nice to have you on board from Cornwall. What else do we have? Bobby Burgess. Yeah, here in Canada, it's about 900 Canadian dollars for the R30. Yeah, they have this afternoon broadcast. Radio Prague has this afternoon broadcast on 15770, which is nice. I tune in sometimes. JDX, if you have any questions, let me know. Going to make some instructional videos on it soon when I got time. Cool, Jerry. Would you call the video I posted on the Facebook group today a successful 10,000 kilometer DX? I've not seen the video. I haven't had a lot of time, so I didn't look at much of what was posted on the Facebook group today. Sheldon RV. Yes, the January 2020 Canadian International DX Club Messenger bulletin is out, 73 pages, and was just sent out a few days ago. If you've never asked for a sample copy, you can ask away. The email is cidxclub@yahoo.com. It's a great little publication every month, and there's lots of information about radio stuff in there you're going to learn, and it's fun to read. There's really a lot of stuff in there. Mad Radio DXer. Yes, thank you so much. Really, really nice to have that radio, and once again, thanks to Kevin Jane Apollo, who sent me the radio. It was very generous of him, absolutely. Just like the Yesu FT450 that was sent to me by Jack N9 IIF. Also a very generous donation, honestly. It was really, really cool. So have a good back to work, Kevin. And thanks once again for the R30. It's really appreciated. I think the R30 is going to work a lot this weekend, especially with the weather. It's the kind of thing that you want to have, a radio like that to tune around, because with the weather we're going to have this weekend, it's crazy. What else do we have? Ryan Jacob, nice to have you here from Lake Charles, Louisiana. Joe Rotman, nice to have you here from Chicago. PLF Radio just received the RSP1A, and I received... Whoops, I just lost my... Let me just go back here. So, and I received a connector between MLA30 and portable radios. I showed you in the email. Cool. Cool. Vault says, with QE, might actually be able to pick a location close enough to transmitter to be able to decode anything. Well, you know, DRM is nonsense, honestly, on the shortwave bands. And I still stand by this. Really, really crazy. Jean-Marc Glitz, nice to have you on board. Bonjour et bienvenue de Strasbourg, en France. With smartphone access. Laptop took me 6 hours getting it working again. So, wow. Bill, you pronounced the brand name of the radio too quickly. It's an SDR Play RSP1A. I'll put the name in the chat here. RSP1A. So here we go. SDR Play Radio Sierra Papa 1 Alpha RSP1A. Roughly $110-ish US. Max S. Strong, yes, huge ice storm headed for here too. Actually, they are announcing that if all goes at the worst, we might have up to 40 millimeters of freezing rain, which is a huge amount of freezing rain. Plus, we'll have wonderful 90-kilometer-per-hour winds going with it. So I expect that if that comes true on Sunday, there's going to be tons of power outages. It's going to be a hell of a weather day on Sunday. It starts tomorrow with rain. It will change into the freezing rain in the late in the day, and freezing rain all night Saturday to Sunday. Sunday almost all day before it changes to snow. It's gonna be crazy. And actually, there's a little, when you go to CKUT Studios, it starts going uphill because it's getting closer to Mount Royal here. So I'm just actually figuring out that little stretch of walk from the subway to CKUT might actually be a hell of an accomplishment on Sunday morning, if that happens. Oh, man. Ryan Jacob, what type of antenna are you using for your shortwave receivers? Pretty much all are on the loops. So I got two loops, two amplified magnetic loop antennas. One is the W6LVP loop. It's made in USA. And the other one is the Chinese ML830 loop. And both are very good antennas, honestly. But for the price, the MLA30, boy, it's just an amazing antenna. Green Brian, little fun fact I want to know. Have you ever drank some good German beer? If yes, did you think it was good? If no, would you like to try sometime soon? I have had a few types of German beer. Actually, this is the Fin du Monde that I'm drinking right now is a triple Belgian style ale. And the German beer, I don't remember the name. A friend of mine had that at some German beer, and I thought it was the one that I had. And I'm sorry, but it's a very long time ago, and I don't remember the name. But I remember that I thought it was pretty good. It was really, really good. But I'm open. I like to try different beers and different different types of beers from everywhere, for sure. I think everybody has some good beer and bad beer. I think it's just how it is internationally. So Max Strong says Kenwood does. So I think we answered the question here. Contact Kenwood directly, and they will actually fix your radio. Honestly, any radio, a Kenwood, an Icom, whatever, I would go through the company itself and ask them where, and what authorized dealer they would actually send you to fix the radio. Toolman22364. Nice to have you here. W1WJZ in Mississippi. Yeah. Flora Kagan. Nice to have you here. Lots of snow headed our way in Iowa. Nice that Strong says they wanted only $50 to diagnose and estimate. Kenwood was very nice. Bill says that's a switch for Kenwood. Previously, I was told it no longer supported the receiver. Oh, okay. That is okay. But did you mention it was a transceiver or receiver? I think you mentioned it was a transceiver. Or you didn't mention anything. Because I trying to remember, I think I read somewhere that if it was a receiver, like a Kenwood R5000 or 2000 or 1000, that they did not fix anymore. I somehow kind of read something about that. You should still check with them, just in case. Just in case. Mitch Plain, nice to have you here from Buckeye, Arizona. Thank you very much. Flora Kagan got a Texan shortwave radio for my daughters for Christmas, trying to learn slowly how to use it. Cool. William Conlon, nice to have you on board from Ireland. Max S. Strong. Okay. Flora Kagan, it's a PL660. And I feel it's a bit too confusing right now, but I will learn. Shortwave, when you start listening to shortwave, it's a learning curve. But, you're at the right place to start learning about all of this. That's for sure. And any questions you have, ask away. Chuck, does moderate to heavy rain hurt shortwave? If so, which frequency is impacted the most? On shortwave, rain or weather in general does not have much of an effect. On the lower frequencies, that's where the weather doesn't have much effect. But it doesn't mean that weather doesn't have an effect on radio. It has as you go higher and higher in frequencies. So the higher you go, if you go into VHF range, UHF range, you start seeing effect of rain, snow, and all of that. But below 30 megahertz, usually there's really no effect of weather on the reception. Luis Claudio Pinho, nice to have you here. Matambali 13630 China Radio International via Mali, nice carrier, low modulation. the faults, the big ice storm we had here in Quebec, which goes to 1998, and it's something nobody will ever forget. I mean, it was crazy. The amount of rain, ice rain that fell, freezing rain that fell, was about close to 100 millimeters. It was really close to 100 millimeters. It's something that we had never seen, ever seen. Something like 40 millimeters is a lot, but it's something that you might see like every 50 years or something. But that one we had never seen that. And I mean, the trees were all really, really low. I mean, there was so much ice everywhere. It was crazy. They actually told everybody, everywhere where here on my street, there's tons of trees. They would tell everybody, if there's a lot of trees on your street, just don't go out and walk in. It was crazy. And I mean, even the big power, the electricity poles and all of that, the big transmissions line, some collapsed because of the weight of the ice. They had been designed for an amount of ice that they thought would never be reached. And it was reached that time. And I mean, some places took, it took months in some places in the South Shore to get the power back. It was really, really crazy. What's making this one worse is that 40 millimeters is actually a lot already. So already just the rain. If we go to 40 millimeters, just the freezing rain is enough to cause quite a lot of damage here and there. But the fact that there's going to be winds up to 90 kilometers per hour is what is freaking out everybody. Because imagine all the weight of that ice, and you've got 50, 60, 70 kilometer per hour winds pushing on that. I'm pretty sure if that happens Sunday, there's going to be tons of trees with broken branches everywhere. It's going to be something. I think everybody's kind of looking at what's going to happen this weekend. And of course, my W6LVP and my MLA30 loops will be outside in that weather. My sloper antenna will be outside in that weather. And it's going to be kind of interesting. And I'm sure I'm going to take a look at the antennas pretty regularly, for sure. PLF radio. Why international broadcast stations use DRM? Few portable receivers actually get it. And you're totally right. And to decode it, you have to use an SDR or a specific software. The idea of Digital Radio Mondiale started with an idea that maybe we could have better quality reception around the world with a digital mode called DRM. Problem with DRM is, first of all, they didn't think about that really well. Unless you have an extremely strong signal, forget it. You're not gonna decode anything. Here, when I decode, I get the station name, and that's all. It just misses a little something to get the actual audio out of it. Somebody somewhere convinced shortwave stations that DRM was the future of radio. And there were supposed to be cheap, inexpensive DRM receivers that would be sold everywhere, which really never happened, actually. So, honestly, I'm still wondering why stations bother and waste transmission power and money into DRM, because I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of people listening in. I mean, come on, if you're a radio station on shortwave, you want to have the three hobbyists that have that really expensive setup to listen to your broadcast in DRM. I don't think that's the purpose of you transmitting on shortwave. You want to have the maximum number of people. And I don't know, somebody somewhere sold DRM really, really well. They all thought that would save the future of shortwave. It's just a big mess, a big signal with tons of noise. It's actually wide. It interferes more than it actually is helpful in the transmission of some sort. And I personally, DRM should stop to be broadcast on the shortwave bands. That said, DRM might be interesting. Maybe on local broadcasters, stuff that the signals are stable and very strong, could be interesting. Maybe DRM has a purpose there. But honestly, on shortwave, forget it. Mark Ledford, there's Arnie and Radio Vanucuba still on the air? Yes, Mark, I actually heard, it had been a while. I think it was on Tuesday. I heard DXers Unlimited is a DX show. So yes, he's still on the air. Page Master, nice to have you here. KC5VOY, WA5136SWL. Matam Valley, Radio Marti, 9565, huge signal. Okay, it was a transceiver, 850, yeah. Yeah, you'll get it repaired by Kenwood. Keegan, in Northwest Arkansas, nice to have you here. What else do we have? Brian got the creepy whining again on 3570. Last time I unfortunately did not get your description of what it is supposed to mean. Yeah, you're probably listening to FT8. You might be actually hearing the FT8 kind of weird tones. It does sound very creepy and weird when you listen to it on the radio without decoding, but you're probably listening to what is FT8 on 3574. Indy Packrat, nice to have you on board from Indiana. Matambali says at low frequencies, very low frequencies, really wet ground can make much better reception. Yeah, but we're talking about ground here. So, that's not the same thing. It's for the same purpose that, for example, all the transmissions, Okeechobee, Florida, for example, even Sackville, New Brunswick, the type of land that it was on, which was wetter and like Okeechobee and in the Florida kind of marshlands, if you wonder, it actually makes the perfect area for a great transmission facility. So that's for sure. Mark Kane, nice to have you here from Bedford, New Hampshire. Mad Boy, nice to have you here, my friend. Pretty cool. Brian is currently spying on the 80-meter band. Be careful what you're saying. Vince, salut. Bienvenue. Nice to have you here, Vince. Vince Perrault. Jim F. from Rhode Island. Nice to have you here. And Bill. Okay, no, they're talking about that. Okay. Let's go down. So Bill just called Kenwood. 2 numbers. We're not in operation. Fast busy. Third went to voicemail. Okay. I would send an email, maybe. If you don't have the number, maybe send an email. I hate it when companies don't have that great service, It seems harder and harder to get a really good service today. Creep Brian has radio KBS World Radio in German, 3955. Keegan is listening in on his Eton Grundig Field Edition Field BT radio. Cool. Cyberflyer 1, nice to have you on board. Zigurd ZSL, nice to have you on board, my friend, from the southeast of Montreal. Hochelaga Maisonneuve, bonjour et bienvenue. Hihab Aldeber Alpha Chlori from Brussels, Belgium. Nice to have you on board. Sorry about messing up your name. Nice to have you here from Belgium. Okay. There are vaults, I believe, some countries that are actually doing some transition of DRM on medium wave, but most of the medium wave digital isn't DRM. It's other types of HD radio transmissions. There's a lot of talk in Europe, different countries using DRM for local broadcasts. Actually, one of the interesting aspects of DRM is that several countries, including France, have actually tested DRM in the 25 megahertz spectrum. They would use that 25 megahertz area for local DRM broadcasting, which is interesting because in times of really good propagation, well, maybe we could DX DRM signals from Europe on 25 megahertz. That'd be kind of cool. But there are some stations like in, I know India has a transition towards DRM transmissions on local medium wave bands. Absolutely. Great, Brian. Would you call a transmit receive distance of about 10,000 kilometers with only a weak signal a successful DX? DX being a term, and actually it's one of the questions of Elizabeth, so let's answer it right now. So Elizabeth says, what exactly does DX mean? And what would you, so her question, which is kind of reaching your question, is what would you consider DX? And you know what? That's a very, very personal thing. What we consider DX is probably not the same thing for me and for somebody else. So DX is a telegraph term. It simply means distance. It's, it means you're listening to a signal from far away, from a long distance from where you are. DX doesn't mean the same thing depending on the band you're listening to. So 10,000 kilometer signal that you would actually have a positive identification and understand the meaning of the transmission is, in many cases, DX, a good, really good DX. And but DX is really, it really depends, like on FM, which is like really line of sight communication. DX is not the same distance. It won't be 10,000 kilometers, but if you're listening to an FM radio station through 200 kilometers away, you can consider that DX. Also, DX, what is DX? It depends on what, is listening to the BBC from Ascension Islands DX. It is far away, but they are using high power, and is it considered DX? Some will say yes, some will say no. There's not a clear definition of what you would consider a DX catch. In my personal opinion, a DX catch is something that is lower powered and not necessarily that far away. A 1 kilowatt signal heard from California could technically be considered DX. It's very low power, and it comes from California, which is quite far away. I mean, from Montreal, California is as far away as receiving a signal from Europe. So, that could be considered DX. But some people will say, no, it's not. It all depends. There's really no official definition. And some people are DX on certain signals, and some people will say, well, that's not DX. Of course, we were listening to Radio Prague on 15770 from WRMI, even though it is several thousand kilometers away from Montreal. I don't consider WRMI DX because it's kind of an easy catch. But if a ham radio operator with, 50 watts is in Florida and is making it all the way here to Montreal on 20 meters, well, 50 watts, and you made it all the way to Montreal on 20 meters, maybe, it's starting to get, I would call that DX. It's a complex term to really pin down. But overall, it means mostly long distance. So, your definition of DX also can change. My definition of DX today in DX when I started in 1982. For me in 1982, listening to Radio Berlin in East Germany, well, that was DX. It was DX. It was far away. It was amazing. Now today, the same type of transmission might not be DX because of the high power use and making it kind of really easy to listen to. But you know. Zuziazel, I'm back to the hobby after 20 years and I'm a bit confused about SDRs. Can you explain simply what it is exactly? Thank you. So, an SDR, so that's an example of one here. An SDR, very simply put, is a radio that has no controls and it needs a computer or some computing device with a screen to operate. So, my SDR, a SDR Play RSP1A, is the black box you see here. This right there is the antenna connection. That's the MLA30, my loop antenna outside connected there. On the other end, it's the USB cable going to my computer that's showing you this screen over here. So at the basics, this is a radio. The antenna connector, so the signals are getting inside this box. They're being processed here and being sent to the computer. The software here does several things. More processing, but also controlling whatever you're listening to. So if I go on the screen, I can simply input a frequency. So I just input 15,000 here to see if I hear WWV time signal. And I hear it. Not super strong, but it's there. So my computer is controlling the box. It's telling it what frequency I want to tune to. It has tons of little bells and whistles of settings. So it's simply put a radio controlled by a computer at the most basics. Why is SDR so cool for a lot of us? You know, if you listen into a signal from a radio, say you tune in from a radio like the one I got here or what you see over here. Well, these receivers, you know, or even my Icom right here, these receivers are receivers that actually get one frequency at a time, and you got to tune. You don't see anything around it. So if there's a signal that appears somewhere, you won't see it appear. You won't know it exists unless you tune around it by chance. You're actually tuning it. Here, you got a waterfall display. And this can go, and in my case of my SDR, I can actually have this 10 megahertz wide if I want. What this shows is all the different signals. So if I put it on 6,000 kilohertz, the 49 meter band, all the lines that you see that are coming down this waterfall are all signals that I can tune. It's receiving all of that at the same time. So I just zoomed in a little more. So each individual lines that you see here are signals that I can actually tune in. I can click and see what it is. And that is probably the most interesting aspects of an SDR, the ability to visualize, see what's out there. And I don't know how many times I've actually heard signals that I would have missed with a regular receiver, because here, if something appears 10 kilohertz higher, I don't know. I'm still listening to my broadcast. Here, I see it. I might be listening to something, then a line appears next to it. Oh, what's that? I'm going to click on it because I can see a transmission just started. What is it? Click on it, listen on it. It is probably the reason why SDRs are really popular right now. It's that capability. So I hope that kind of answers your question. Keegan has WWVH from Hawaii, weak but audible through the noise on 15 megahertz. So pretty cool. No problem, Mark Ledford. Cyberflyer 1, nice to have you here from the UK. What else do we have? What else do we have? Okay, going down. Dave thought 25 megahertz would be cool at solar maximum for DRM. Old enough to remember 11-meter broadcast band in 89. I still remember fondly of listening to Radio RSA in South Africa on 25790. I actually have a QSL card here with that frequency on it. Pretty crazy. So Scott Cranston, DX, receiving a signal that's not directly targeted to you. Yes and no. It can be targeted to you, but still, you know, like I said earlier, if you're listening to a 100-watt signal from a ham operator in New Zealand, even if it's directed to you, it's DX. For me, receiving a ham station, 100 watts from New Zealand, directed to you is DX. And I don't think it's necessarily directed or not, personally. But like I say, you know, we all have our own perception of what is DX. For some people, something could be DX. For others, no. It's kind of subject of interpretation here. Chimbali, Mr. Bale, nice to have you on board. Hearing Morse code at 65 kilohertz. Found it to be really strong in Southeast China. Because there's a time signal station in Russia on, what is it, 66.666, something like that. Maybe that's what you could be receiving, the Russian time station on long wave. Brett Wayne, nice to have you on board. Says, been sanding icy roads since 4 a.m. Wow, you must be tired, man. KC2 and XP. In Salamanca, New York. Ray, nice to have you here from Turkey. Yeah, of course, you know, if it rains, of course, having that wet ground does absolutely really make transmissions better. René Charbonnier, nice to have you on board. Planning to buy the MFJ 1020C. My question is it good? So anybody has the MFJ 1020C? Anybody can comment, has one, maybe can say, hey, I love it. Brian, can you recommend the Baofeng UV5R just for listening to our local relay or the International Space Station without a ham license as an emergency radio? Look, I've heard a lot of good things about the Baofeng. And if you put it, because you got always to put it price versus performance. Price versus performance looks to be pretty good. Absolutely. Danny, Shortwave Radio DX. Nice to have you on board from Yonkers, New York. You see, that's interesting because, like, for example, Vault says I wouldn't recommend it, and I see tons of people recommending it. You know, maybe I should order one and check it out for myself. You know, but one of the things I've heard a lot is you get what you pay for with the Baofeng, meaning it's not gonna be you know, as good as some more expensive radio, for sure. Some recommendations for receiving slow scan TV. Get yourself a good radio with basically an outdoor antenna. Is mostly that. But if you're talking of SSTV on HF or not, if you're talking the slow scan TV to the International Space Station is sending. I do agree with Vaults that at the price point of that SDR Play RSP1A is very hard to beat. Darn, it's amazing. I'm probably amazed every day at my RSP1A here. It's just crazy. Ronald Kluntz, what type of connector is on the MLA30? It's an SMA connector. SMA. Toolman22 says, that's a nice setup you have there. Thank you very much. Chuck, speaking of sunspots, I observed the sun through my Lunghast solar scope. Prominence and sunspots. Cool. That's fun. It's interesting. The solar cycle 25 seems to be kind of picking up slowly. The sun has been only spotless one day since the beginning of the year. We've had spots on starting on December 22nd, 23rd, 2 spots. They were both solar cycle 25. And it's kind of interesting. There's a spot right now, all solar cycle 25. So I don't know. Maybe 2020 is going to be better than last year. Scott Cranston, SDR means doing things in software that were previously done in hardware. So, yep. It's really computer controlled, software controlled. David, KJ4CMY. Now we can start a show. So, Trombelli, Mr. Bell, isn't the Russia atomic clock is another Morse code signal that doesn't make any others? Huh. Interesting. Maybe something. There must be something somewhere. There must be something somewhere. For sure. William Helms, nice to have you on board from Florida, from your brother's truck. Nice to have you here. Swampton 2 from Sunshine State, 83 Fahrenheit in Central Florida. Nice to have you here, my friend. Oh yeah, you can get the International Space Station slow scan TV on the Baofeng. That I'm pretty sure. Joe, nice to have you here, my friend. Yeah, you can't transmit with that UV5R if you don't have a ham license for sure. Then you Shortwave Radio DX about the Baofeng UV5R and eBay, $29. Good little radio. So you know. Ronald Zucala, nice to have you here. Happy New Year. The new MFJ 1020 indoor powered antenna works very well from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. So Ronald is happy with that 1020 powered antenna. I would guess it must be good, you know. Jersey bound, nice to have you on board, my friend. Just got his first shortwave QSL card from Radio Romania. Cool. Isn't that fun? The first time you get a QSL card or a letter from a station from another country. It's just so crazy cool. You know, I still remember the first ever QSL card, the first ever letter I got from a station. I was so happy. I was jumping up and down. And if it be today, 50 years later, well, for 38 years later, I'd still be jumping up and down at 50 years. I mean, wow. I haven't written to a station in such a long time, and I've been reminding myself in the past couple of weeks that I should take the time to write to stations and let them know I'm listening in. And I always tell you guys, hey, you got to write to the stations. You got to let them know you're here. You got to let them know you're listening, and I'm not even doing my part. I need to do my part. Matam Valley, sunspot number 14. By the way, quick little info here. So if you guys see that, you know, when we look at the sunspot number is always a high number. It's always like, you know, there's 11. You might say there's a sunspot, but the sunspot number can be 11. And it's simply because of they have some way of actually calculating that number for the sunspot number. So, you know, when you see like as sunspot number 14, it doesn't mean there's 14 individual spots on the sun. It's the way that it's calculated. It could be like, 2 spots or 2 cores next to each other, and that's it. Or even 1 spot, and you'll have a sunspot number of 11. So just saying, for those that think when sunspot number is 14, there must be 14 spots on the sun. It's not exactly like that. And there's a question coming from Jersey Bound, because one of the questions that Elizabeth has. So Elizabeth has never written a station for a QSL card. She has written to stations, she says, but never for anything that is QSL cards or QSLing. And she says, and she has 2 questions that goes with it. Is why do we want QSL cards? And the other one is, why do stations send out QSL cards? So let's start with why the stations send out QSL cards. So QSLing comes back a long, long time. QSLing comes back from the time where stations didn't really know how well their signals were actually received somewhere else in the world. The only way they knew was if we would tell them. But the problem is, you got to ask someone to take the time to write a letter to you. So QSLs is an incentive for you to do that. With QSLs, which is kind of a postcard, if you want, with the details of the transmissions you listen to, it's a proof that you actually heard the station, gave a reason for people to write in. It's like, oh, I want to have that postcard from that station, from that country. And so a lot of us, including me, probably started a collection of QSL. We were collecting QSL cards, trying to get the biggest amount of countries possible, the biggest number of stations, different stations. Some stations have QSL card themes through the year. For example, Radio Prague just announced that for 2020, I believe it's 5 QSL cards they'll issue. 5 different QSL cards for the year 2020. So they are part of having different themes of radio QSL cards. And it's there to kind of have the user or the viewer or the listener write in and let them know the quality of the signal and if they like the program. So QSL card was kind of done in a way to try to have you write in and let them know that you're there and you're listening. So that's the thing. And for the guy like me, and for pretty much everybody that wants QSL cards, it's the idea behind the fact that it's kind of fun to have a collection. I have all of my QSL cards here. I'm actually scanning them right now because I got my new Epson EcoTank printer. And it has a scanner on it, and I'm actually scanning my QSL cards slowly to have a electronic version of them. And I look at my collection, and I'm so happy to see the collection of cards from the past, to see that I got cards from stations that are gone today. I posted on the Facebook group the one about which was the last QSL of Radio Netherlands, which says goodbye and thanks, which is one of those moments. It's like, yeah, that was part of my life at some point, and it's gone now. So you got it's kind of a collector's item, like a stamp collector will collect stamps from all over the world. QSL collector will collect QSLs from all over the world. And she has another question coming with that: do AM FM stations have issue QSL cards, and do amateur radio operators have QSL cards? AM FM stations used to, some of them used to have QSL cards. A lot of them had what we call QSL letters or verification letters. They didn't have a card, but they would send you a letter with the details of reception, which was kind of a QSL. It's just it was a QSL letter rather than a card. And amateur radio operators, a lot of ham radio operators have their own QSL cards that they send out and they share with others. There's a lot of them that actually don't like that. So many AMs that I've seen on QRZ.com say, hey, don't bother me or ask me for a QSL. So some people don't want that. It does cost a lot of money. You got to print the QSL cards and so on. Although today there's all sorts of electronic ways of getting QSL cards. When I get my ham license, I will have QSL cards because I'm a fan of QSL cards, and I will probably want to have somebody else's QSL card, another ham's QSL card, if I start doing contacts. It's kind of a nice way of having a proof of I've heard you and we made contact at some point. And some hams have beautiful QSL cards. I've got some really nice ones here over the years that some listeners, some ham operators actually had. And so QSLing is something that not everybody goes through, but it's an interesting aspect of getting something, memorabilia of something that you did in the past. And when I start looking at my QSLs from HCJB and Radio RSA and Radio Berlin, and Radio Canada International and Radio Beijing before it was China Radio, Swiss Radio International, all of that. Man, brings me back into the days when all of that existed at some point. Linux DOS, nice to have you here, my friend. He says, yes, 6 and 10 meters has had openings lately, and the low bands have been hopping of late. Nizan Greenwich, nice to have you on board, says, more thumbs up. Come on. Pretty cool. It was a shock. Cool. Maybe useful long wave, medium wave, shortwave band plan in PDF. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing, PLF Radio. Yeah, Sheldon, that is true. That's probably the difference from now and from when I was starting shortwave. I would be jumping on him down, but I will be probably suffering for the next few days. I actually started training again. It's my New Year's resolution, losing about 30 pounds. And training again. So on this week, I went training 3 times. And I trained on Monday. And on Tuesday morning, I woke up and I was like, man, I'm hurting everywhere. I'm still hurting, actually, when I do certain moves. And actually, when I extend my arm here like this, I actually have like something on my shoulder. It's like, yeah, the old man training, old man. That's what you get when you train when you're old. Comex Z1976, nice to have you on board. Would it be okay to mount the MLA30 on the same PVC pipe that my long wire antenna is connected to? It would, as long as the wire itself is not too close to the loop of the MLA30, because it might change some properties. It might induce some noise also. So just make sure that they're as far apart as you can, because there could be some interaction. Bill, one more question. With your SDR connected to the loop antenna, how do you handle the interference generated by the computer? Actually, my computer that I'm using, which is a Toshiba laptop that's running this thing, is extremely quiet. And I have pretty much no computer noise from there. The noise actually I got in my SDR doesn't even come from my own home. It comes from neighbors or something anyways. But it's a good question because some computers are noisier than others. So I suspect that some people that have, I saw a post the other day of somebody said, I got an RSP1A, it's crap. And when somebody's like really direct like that, you're like, okay, can you just explain why it's crap to you? Because I'd like to know. And I actually politely said, can you explain why you don't like it? Because, it's crap doesn't mean anything. And he started talking, and I noticed that, okay, you've got noise. And the thing is, two things can make noise. Either you have a long wire outside and it's very noisy and your RSP1A is full of noise, which is not the RSP1A's fault, but your antenna and your position. And the other is maybe your computer could be sending noise, but the RSP1A seems to be well filtered through that. I've plugged it in on almost every device that I have, and I can't say I've seen really a lot of noise induced. But you got to have good USB cables. You got to have cables that have, these little ferrite chokes to remove the noise as much as possible. So if you look here, I don't know if you guys can see it, but the USB cable, look at that here. Look at this. This big round thing here is a ferrite choke. This is on the USB cable here. This filters out a lot of the computer noise. So good cables is a must for software-defined radios. So Glenn Zegman, nice to have you here from Tennessee. Linux DOS being a ham. I've got shortwave reports from shortwave listeners. I usually send them a card. I no longer QSL because it's too expensive, and I'm old and retired. That is probably most of the reason why a lot of hams don't QSL today. It's dreadfully expensive. I mean, if I would spend the same amount of, I would send the same amount of letters today to shortwave radio stations that I did in 1983, man, it would cost me a crazy amount of money today. It's really gotten very, very expensive. Joe Sombranuas, nice to have you on board from Brazil. Yeah, EQSL is a way to do it. Like Vault says, EQSL is a way you can still QSL, and it's for me an EQSL is still good. Personally, what I do with EQSLs, I buy photo paper and I print them out. I keep the original picture because they come in the form of like a JPEG or picture. But what I do personally is I print them out on photo paper to get a paper copy, which is another way of doing it. It's like, okay, EQSL, print the card, And yep, for those that still wonder about QSL cards, like Joe says, and one of the questions that I get from time to time, you want to have a QSL card from a radio station, you write to them, you let them know the time, the date, the frequency that you were listening in. I always suggest, because people, old timers will tell you, use the SIMPO code. I would tell you, forget the SIMPO code and just write down in your own words the type of noise or interference you were getting. Because a lot of them get that and say, what the hell is that 5, SIMPO code thing? It's not as well maintained as a knowledge today as it was 30 years ago. So you could, just say, I was listening to your station. There was interference from the stations that were just next to the frequency. And sometimes you can suggest things. For example, here in North America this winter, Radio Romania 6130 has been very crappy here because there's 6125 that's very strong. And plus, Radio Romania isn't giving a really good signal this winter. It makes it almost impossible to hear the North American service of Radio Romania. I've been listening to the European service, which comes in 100 times better than the North America service. So, you can mention that. You can say, well, there was adjacent interference from that station that's very strong next to it. I would suggest you could move to another frequency to avoid that. And some stations will actually do, for sure. And what you do, you give at least at least 15, 20 minutes of program details, because you could be lying. You could be saying, I'm listening in, but you're not. So the program details is a proof that you were listening, because you're mentioning whatever they're talking about. Anything you can actually put down, whatever the program is, and program name. Is it a female or male announcer? What they were talking about, the type of music, what music, do you have the name of the artists or the song, and so on. And you write that down. And, of course, take the time at the same time to let them know what you like about the programs, or give suggestions, or all sorts of things. And you can send them that by email. What's interesting by doing it by email is that it's fast, and it doesn't really cost anything because you're already on the internet anyway. And sending it by email will result in two things. Either you'll get eQSL. More stations are doing this today. Or some stations will still send you a good old paper QSL by mail. Which also means when you send that email, don't forget to put your name and full postal address to where to send the card. Or else you won't get any cards. I think it was Voice of Turkey. Last week or 2 weeks ago, the guy read a report. And the guy did say in the mailbag show, we would be happy to send you a QSL card, but we don't have any postal address to send it to. Please write back, let us know, because we want to send you the card, but we don't have any address. Don't forget. Lee Burkett, nice to have you here, my friend. David Snyder collects stamps. So, from all over the world. My dad used to collect stamps. I remember, I even had my dad had purchased a big book, and he would collect stamps. And I remember he had purchased a small one, which was like the junior book of stamp collecting or something. And sometimes on Sundays, mostly on Sundays, we would sit down in the kitchen and get all the envelopes with the stamps in them and check out all the stamps. And it was kind of cool. Some of the good times. Rob, nice to have you on board from Phoenix, Arizona. Cream Brian just got his first successful QSO on CB just in time for the new year. Woohoo! Yeah. It's late in Germany. Psychofu, nice to have you here from the Oregon coast. KJ7 ISU. Nice to have you here. Shady Pyro 90. Nice to have you on board. Toolman says, as a kid, me and my dad did a lot of shortwave listening. 1968, 1976. The good days. So many stations. Yeah, back then it was crazy. Crazy. So, explanation of the... I read the explanation kind of why and the alternatives and stuff. But, I still think it's a requirement that, I'll say, I do agree and accept the fact that you might want to have some people register. But, man. Vault, speaking of QSLs, last show Googled and found scans of QSLs from Soviet times, from radio, from Riga, Vilnius, Kyiv. Interesting part, they had shortwave transmissions. Yes. Yeah, I have a QSL from Vilnius, Lithuania. Absolutely. There was a lot of Soviet and Soviet satellite states stations out there on shortwave back then. There's a lot of stuff. I like sometimes going on the on the internet and checking out other people's QSL collections. It's always kind of fun. Sheldon Harvey says the shoulder pain is from lifting the beer glass. Hey, I'm lifting the beer glass from the right hand. It's the left shoulder. Joe Citizen. Says, nice to have you here. It says, contacted the FCC 10 years ago asking about a license to broadcast on shortwave. 3 people there told me that there is no license. No, there is a license. You need to be licensed to broadcast on shortwave. You need to have all the credentials to do so. You cannot broadcast on shortwave just like you want. You really need to get a license for that. Max Armstrong just pulled a muscle in his back taking a nap. At 50 years of age, it's you stretch to get something. And you stretch, and then suddenly you start feeling something. And you're like, oh, God, I'm going to stop here because I'm pulling some kind of muscle or something. Man, that's where you see you're getting older. KC9QH, nice to have you on board. They've thought late 80s. I did 11-meter freeband and would give a P.O. box on the air. Got a few shortwave listener reports from Eastern Bloc countries, and I returned cards. One from East Berlin was the best. Still have it. Cool. Great memories. Hey, John McClure, he made it. Cool. Fred Rodnick bought a Texan PL 310 ET, can get shortwave even with the plug-in antenna. You probably are 2 things you got to be careful when you're listening in to shortwave. Knowing when and where to listen to something is very important. And also, if you aren't receiving anything at all, I suspect that you have too much noise where you are located. You know what? Little experiment, Fred. Go to a park or go to an area that is a little far away from the houses, from the homes, and from power lines. And you might actually see that your radio is coming to life. If you do receive a lot of signals when you do that, that means where you live, where you're trying to listen to shortwave, there's too much noise, and it's all, washing out the signals. Unfortunately, that's the biggest problem. From time to time, I get people that come back to me and say, well, I purchased a radio. I look at your videos, and you're getting tons of stations, and I don't get nothing. And that's where you see that, unfortunately, some of us live in, I complain of my noise level, but I notice that there are some people out there where the noise level is so much worse than what I've got that sometimes you just might want to not complain about your noise level, because it's not equal everywhere. It's like there's some people like Mickey Dalmage that have no noise and that listen to, that 1 watt signal from the other side of the earth like it was, local, and it's like, yeah, I got that all the time. And you got the other end where people have so much noise, and they just don't hear anything. I'm somewhere in the middle, noisy, but still manageable somewhat. Shady Pyro 90, right on. James Powers, nice to have you here, Derry, and from Derry, New Hampshire, KC1ENJ, pretty cool. KC9QH, rainy here, maybe 2 to 5 inches of rain. So that's rain. That's a lot of rain, I gotta say. Brian Penny. Pirate radio broadcasters issue some of the most eclectic and fun QSLs. Absolutely. Here, I'm going to show you guys an example. There's one right here in my face right now. So here's a QSL card from Cupid Radio. And I will just block out something off of it because I don't want to. I want to have YouTube blocking the video or something. So this is a QSL card from Cupid Radio. So the funny thing about this QSL card is the guy has a an inflated woman in his bed. And Cupid shot an arrow through the inflated doll. So the guy's real mad. It's really funny, actually. So this is the kind of eclectic QSL you get from pirate radio stations. Take care, Cree Brian. It's nice to have you on board. Max Estrong, why don't they just include a processor with the SDR 1A and be done with it? Well, that would actually cause the price of this thing to become much, much more expensive. You know, we got to remember that we are in a time where price is very important. People won't buy something because it's $10 more expensive than the other. You know, an example, I always say that, you know, I saw something this week that I might try. But, you know, Amazon Canada has the C-Crane Skywave SSB for, you know, 298 Canadian dollars. I'm sorry. No small portables made in 2019, 2020 is worth $300. Not with what we have as an offer now, like the XH Data D808 that does it all and does it really well and barely costs $100. You know, once again, you know, I get hate mail all the time from people saying, well, the C-Crane are great. I'm not saying they're good or no good. I'm not there. I'm just saying I'm not paying that price. And that's where SDRs are also. You know what makes the RSP1A really sell? Price versus performance. The rest is done by the computer. That's all. Put a CPU in there or make it more powerful of some way, and you're actually hiking the price by $100, $200, $300, and nobody, well, a lot less people will want to buy it suddenly. You know? Man Reader DXer, power supplies on desktop PCs can cause increased noise on the HF bands. I actually have had more success with low noise also on my laptops than on my desktop PCs. But that said, if you buy a really good quality power supply for a desktop, they are very, very quiet. But most desktops come with crappy power supplies. KC9KUH says I get a little QRM from my HDMI, but it's not too bad. Yeah, LLTW, another fine choice for EQSLing and stuff like that. Linus Das, Asia, why not build an antenna tuner for shortwave, medium wave, long wave antenna tuning? I've noticed that tuning my antennas via my tuner really helps on receive, not just transmit. Of course it does help, because, I mean, you are tuning, so your antenna resonates to what signal you're listening to. And that's for sure. And, you know, there's a lot of commercial antenna tuners out there. So, yeah, there is, I know MFJ makes a couple of antenna tuners that are meant also for receive. Oh, really? Wow. Stay safe, Keegan. Tornado warning. Man. What else do we have? William Conlon, picture quality is very low because you got to check your on YouTube if it comes all like blurry and bad. The you have to check the streaming if you're in 720p or 1080p. I'm sending out 1080p here. So and it's right now it's saying that I'm sending out exactly 4,000 kilobits per second. So should be good. Should be good. Matt says Rush was one of my favorite bands when I was younger. Got away from them for a while, but luckily decided to check them out last few tours they did. Oh, really? Neil Peart died. Oh, man. Oh, man. Rush. I've never been a fan of Rush. It for some reason didn't really kind of get me. I like a few songs. I mean, I really like a few songs, but I've never been. Yeah, Rush. Yep, I got it here on the local press. Neil Peart, which is the Rush drummer that died 67 years old from brain cancer. Wow. Rest in peace, my friend. Joe Citizen just bought a 1,000-foot spool of coaxial cable. I'm going to make a big balloon and lift it with helium. It better be small, because, I mean, that cable needs to be really, really thin, because, I mean, balloons don't get a lot of weight up. Mad Boy still waiting for the snow in Denmark. Yeah, we don't have a lot of it here. Actually, when you think about what a winter looks like in Canada, in Montreal at least. You know. KC9 QH says Radio Algérienne 59 here and 5940. Yeah, usually has a good signal. This is from France, by the way. France transmitter site. Yep, coming in here pretty well. I'm hearing it. I'm hearing a pretty good signal here too. Just somewhere on US. William Conlon, your email does not show. Joe somewhere on US. Sometimes when I listen to an AM or shortwave station, I try to notice them. Tell them about shortwave signal received, sometimes over 10,000 kilometers, sending an email or message, but I never ever received any response. It depends on who you're writing. One of the things that is clear, that AM stations aren't known to be very good. You know, especially today. I mean, they're all strapped for cash. So they're not that good at actually kind of really answering back. Often they don't answer back, or if they do, it's going to be very basic. But shortwave stations is another thing. Most of them do answer back. Don't forget one thing, Jao Samdan US. A lot of shortwave broadcasters will not answer through email. You might write them an email, but they will answer only with a postal address. So you might write a station, and you might have no news. But if you put your postal address, you'll receive stuff. They'll send you a letter. A lot of stations do that. It's surprising the number of shortwave broadcasters that don't answer back to you on email. iMapper, nice to have you on board from Moscow. Woohoo! Moscow, Russia. Matt received, he did Whisper or WSPR, which is Whisper, 40 meters. Delta Papa 0, Golf. So DP0GVN, Golf Victor November in Antarctica. Cool. That is DX. Anything from Antarctica is DX. Anything. Linux DOS, Seagull Net on LSB 3941, Maine. Let's try it out here. 3941. Am I hearing a lower sideband? Wow, I've got some weird interference right now. Look at these lines of interference. They pop up from time to time, and I don't know where they come from. Matam Bali, great thing about getting older. You pull muscles you didn't know even existed. Gustavo Pinto, nice to have you on board. Just received the 1020C MFJ 1020C. It is good, but not that much compared to my indoor. Comparing to my indoor conditions, it is better using a wire instead of built-in telescopic. So, interesting. Bill says, wait till you are 78. Yes, I know. I'm complaining and whining at 50. And I know some of you are older than me and are like, yeah, young guy's complaining. Wait till he's in the 70s. Kevin J. Napalo, nice to have you here, WS2H. I recently got a Christmas card from Radio Havana, Cuba, after getting Cubacell 2 years ago. I would recommend always sending a return address envelope with the required amount of postage too. Yeah, and big broadcasters, like Cuba, Romania, whatever, Voice of Turkey, BBC or any big broadcaster, you don't really require any return postage or anything. But smaller broadcasters that are, like Tropical Band, I would actually, when I would send to African stations, I would often put like $1 US dollar in the envelope, stuff like that, to kind of pay back some of the the cost of postage and everything. Terry Cook, nice to have you here from Western Montana, KF7BQ. Glenn Segment says, my uncle got me into shortwave way back in the late 50s. Man, that must have been so cool. So cool. I would like to listen to shortwave, what shortwave was like in the 40s, in the 50s, the 60s. Yeah, Mickey Delmage. Plus Zero, nice to have you on board. Tornadoes today, snow overnight. Talk about, switching weather. Well, we got a tornado today and it's supposed to have 2 feet of snow tomorrow. Redalva 65, nice to have you here from New York City. Valtz is saying about a post about people buying RF chokes and visiting neighbors. And I was, I don't know, I guess it was like 10 or 15 years ago. I was listening to a local net here from Quebec on 80 meters. And there was a guy talking about how all of his neighbors complaining about him getting into their TVs and Wi-Fi systems and so on. And he would actually, when they would complain, he would actually knock on their door and tell them, well, I can fix it. I will put a little something on all of your cables here, and you see I won't be in your systems anymore. But he was talking about one particular neighbor because he got into trouble with, I think it was Industry Canada, because an inspector actually did show up because that neighbor complained, and he had gone to that neighbor several times saying, I'll just put these little things here and you won't, it's going to be a fine. It's free. I'm giving them away, But she didn't want to know, she didn't want him inside. She didn't want him to do anything. And he was talking about how, it's complicated. And man, I remember being at a friend's house, like in the 90s. And I remember listening. We were actually watching a movie. And we were hearing something. And my friend pauses the movie and says, "Do you hear that?" And I immediately, because I listened to the radio, I immediately noticed it sounded like single sideband talk, but without being decoded in single sideband mode, in upper sideband or lower sideband or whatever. And I immediately said, you know what? Last week when we were watching a movie, it did the same thing. Next time, I'm going to bring something with me and we're going to try something. So the week after, because we would meet up like on every Friday evenings for watching movies. We would watch 2-3 movies. And every Friday, the ham operator was there talking. So the next week, I actually had with me, I think it was, I wonder if it's on my Grundig G5 or something like that, because that's what I had back then. Anyways, I had a shortwave radio. And when it started, I said, pause. We're gonna find that guy talking. And he was on 80 meters. And I made that signal. I received a signal on the portable, and it was really strong. I mean, even without the telescopic whip being open, it was booming in. So he was very, very close. And I said, look, it matches. Look at the voice you're hearing. It matches what we're hearing in your system. So that ham operator was actually getting into the cables of his system. And at the time, I said, I can fix it. And I had some ferrite chokes. And I said, look, we're going to add these to the cables here. And you're going to see he's going to disappear. You're not going to hear him anymore. Mickey Delmage. Yeah. Spirit of the Radio. Yeah. Rush. Spirit of the Radio. Scott Cranston says, still listen to Farewell to Kings all the time. KC9QH Scandinavian Weekend on 5980 with a big signal. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, it's that weekend, right? 5980? Am I hearing anything here on 5980? I've got 5980. I got a big signal, but I don't have... That's not what I got. What's on 5980? I got Voice of Turkey. Is it? Yeah, that's Voice of Turkey. I've got Voice of Turkey on 5980. KC9QH. I think you're listening to the Voice of Turkey. Don't you find that the music sounds very Middle Eastern? It is Middle Eastern type music. So that's Voice of Turkey in 5980, which is, I think, in Turkish at this time. So that's what you're getting. Scandinavian Weekend, was last week. It's the first Friday and Saturday of the month, which meant it was last week. They're just the first Friday and Saturday of the month, if I'm not mistaken. So what you're listening right now, which probably sounds very Middle Eastern, is Voice of Turkey with a really big signal here too. David Irwin, nice to have you on board. Thank you for being here, and maybe you'll learn and listen to the radio with us. Thanks for being here. They've taught when requesting a QSL, don't send your country's stamps to... No, you don't send... When you send stamps, you send stamps from that country, not stamps from your country. The problem with IRCs, which are international reply coupons, is a lot of people can't use them anymore. And a lot of post offices don't even have them anymore. Plus, they cost so much money. They were expensive back in the 80s. Imagine today, an RSC must cost a fortune. And most of the time, it just doesn't work well. You're better off trying to find stamps from that country, or, seal it really well and put like a couple of US dollars. Well, William Conlon, this is not a computer or a tech show. It's a radio show. ERRT Radio. Nice to have you here, my friend. Yes, there's the Icom IC-R30. Absolutely. Coming up. I saw a few posts about that. Looks really, really, really nice. It looks like the IC-7300 somewhat. But it's a QRP transceiver. All band. Very portable. Weighs 2.2 pounds. And has the screen. It really looks like an IC, an Icom IC-7300. but in a very portable and small design, actually. So it's like the Icom IC-8600, IC-R30 ERT radio, 7 degrees and snow falling and blowing. Cool. Or no cool, depends if you like snow. Yeah, it's kind of nice, PLF radio. That also is a possibility. As David says, if the stream is blurry, maybe you drank too much alcohol while you were watching. Oh, man. Time Stands Still. Favorite Rush song. I got a few songs that I like from Rush. I was not a big Rush fan, but there's a few songs that I did really, really enjoy. So ERRT is in Minnesota. Usually have a rough winter. We usually have a pretty rough one here also, but this year up till now it's been pretty quiet. What else do we have? René Charbonnier. Take care, my friend. What is the digital mode on SDR Uno? You mean digital is there to help you, for example, if you are listening to DRM and use Dream software to decode the digital radio mondial, you will put your SDR Uno software in that digital mode. It will give you access to the different bands or wideband filters that you need, the bandwidth that you need for decoding DRM and stuff. So when you put yourself in digital mode, you'll see that the bandwidths, if you go to digital mode, will start getting different. So you choose the different bandwidths, and it actually really uses the filters to help you decode like DRM and stuff. So that's where you should be, actually. You put yourself in that digital mode if you want to decode DRM mode. Lynn Crosby, nice to have you here, my friend. Says, it works. Got my RSB1A going on. MLA30 hooked. Life's good. Joel's on. Where's the beer? Beer's over here. Cheers. James de Calais, nice to have you here. Sending the audio to Google Translate to listen to foreign radios. Oh, I've never done that. Could be interesting. Thomas, nice to have you here. Thomas Belthoff. Nice to have you here, Thomas. Matambale says that one side indicates that U.S. Postal Service still sells IRCs. Another USPS site says that they're all void December 31st, 2013. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Bolin 101. Nice to have you on board. Brett Wayne. We got over a feet of snow 2 days ago. Today we have rain. That's crazy. DRAF. Nice to have you on board. Says medium wave DX was great the past few days. Received KRCN 1060 Denver at 3:30 a.m. I would guess, and afternoon in Kingston. Wow, 1181 miles. Well, I got to say, we've been having some interesting medium wave even in the daytime here. 50 kilowatt pushed out KYW 1060 Philadelphia out with 50 kilowatts also. Wow. Really cool. Really cool. Thomas from Switzerland. Wow, cool. Nice to have you here, my friend. Really nice to have you here. What else do we have? Vaults. I wonder if someone these days is making HF spectrum recording for archiving. And by that I mean like recording the whole bandwidth. Yeah, that could be fun. You know, we are getting into times where we have a lot of archives done on the internet. That would technically, yeah, really be kind of nice. But yeah, totally. There's a lot of all that happening. Hello, my friend, with a name that I don't know what it is, with the Shortwave 77 Sony radio. What the hell's happening with Linux DOS? Jean-Marc, let's post it on Facebook. Link to French, very active DXers page, showing quite a lot of stuff, I guess. Lauren, nice to have you here. IC-718 just got putting up off-center dipole. Cool. What's happening with Linux DOS? Why are you guys fighting over who's blocking or not? I don't know why Linux DOS is blocked. And our friend has a Radio Shack DX398. Bird chokes actually work very well. Take care, PLF Radio. Hey, have a great weekend, Matt. Sorry, guys, but William Conlon has been blocked because he's a troll, and he's been a troll for a while. But tonight, my patience has gone over the boundaries of what I can accept, and I don't have time for that. Shamak, let's post it on Facebook, the link. Yeah, okay, cool. We'll be checking that out. James de Calais, Radio Caroline will be transmitting on the 18th and 19th of January. So, I don't know if Radio Caroline do send QSLs. That would be interesting to know, James de Calais. Maybe they do, or maybe they send EQSLs. We should check that out for sure. Yeah, Vaults, I'm taking it easy. Not drinking too fast. Not drinking too fast. David, KJ4, CMY, I'm not a troll. I just look like one. David in Barcelona, nice to have you on board. Yeah, ERT radio, no trolls allowed in 2020. Lee Burkett, got some Radio Carolina calling CDs, great pirate radio station. And now they've become officially licensed. So nice to have everybody here. We'll take a little second here to just promote. So I hope you enjoyed the show. PayPal.me/shortwave is a place you can go and donate. or PayPal. Donations are accepted at the Yahoo email that I'm posting right now. You can also become a patron at patreon.com. And if you go to patreon.com/radio and computers, you can send it up. So you give a little something every month. And remember, you like what I do? You kind of find it cool that I'm here. I'm here twice a week, all the time. And we do live shows, and we do shows that take hours at a time doing the show. So if you enjoy what I do, a little something is always welcome. You don't have to give a big amount. I get these people from time to time to say, well, I didn't send anything because I'm kind of shy, because I'm going to send you just like, $1. It's fine. You're giving $1. You're already giving more than 98% of everybody. It's all right. If everybody gave $1, actually, it would be great, So thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for being great fans. Because without you guys, there would be no show. And remember, cost me kind of money, to do these things. And a little help goes a long way. Thanks for donations, everybody. Trying to go out to people that never donated before. Why not spare a little something? Think about this as a subscription to some kind of magazine, or you're subscribing once a year to. I get this all the time. A little donation here, and says, well, this is my yearly donation, as if I'm subscribed to Gilles' YouTube show. So it's kind of cool, and it feels good, and it's of course welcome. Helps pay for lighting systems, and actually you might see that it's a little darker than usual. I got one of my lighting system that actually doesn't work anymore, that I need to actually purchase a new one. So it's part of the deal, and I'm happy to be here. Hope that you guys are happy to see me here also. So another question that comes from Elizabeth, as we'll continue on the questions. Elizabeth says that she would like to have a simple explanation of why the sun has such an effect on shortwave propagation. Simple explanation. So simply put, the sun has a cycle that's roughly, or an average of 11 years. That cycle is, there's peaks where the sun has a lot more energy being sent out with sunspots and solar flares and stuff. And there's the bottom of a cycle where not much is happening. It's quieter. There's less energy being sent out. Now, you might think that it's an enormous difference. Actually, it's not. In the peak of a cycle and the bottom of a cycle, the difference in the output of energy of the sun is so low in a difference that that unless we use equipment to measure it, unless we use shortwave radio as a measure of it, we don't, because we're not seeing anything. I mean, at the peak of a solar cycle, we don't see the sun shine brighter or, anything. It doesn't work like that. But there's more energy being pushed out. That's for sure. What happens is that small amount of more energy being sent out is enough to actually ionize the ionosphere more intensely. Each layer is denser. Each layer can do its job better at either blocking or absorbing signals, or at bouncing off signals. The denser ionosphere also means higher frequencies are propagated, because instead of going through, they actually bounce off at 30 megahertz, 40 megahertz, 50 megahertz. In the 50s, when there was these really huge cycles, European TV signals were propagating like shortwave through North America and interfering with what was happening here. And so, simply put, is that when the sun is more active, the ionosphere is denser, the signals can propagate more or better. It can have an adverse effect, meaning there could be more solar flares These are more negative because solar flares pack a big punch of energy on the Earth. And there's something else that impacts our propagation. So the ionosphere can become, can actually absorb more depending on what's happening. A solar flare can trigger the Earth's magnetic field, which messes up a lot of the ionosphere. So that means that a lot of signals might not propagate suddenly. So there's a negative side to a solar cycle peak, but a solar flare has an effect for a certain number of hours or a couple of days, where the solar peak has a constant effect. So we're talking about, solar cycle 25, that seems to be coming to life a little more. We're happy because for most of the time, the sun is just sending a little more energy, and the ionosphere can propagate signals better. But it will be accompanied by these little moments of a solar flare or, geomagnetic storming because of that. And the downside, so 2019 was really the low part of the solar cycle. In that downside, in that bottom of the solar cycle, there's a little less energy being sent out. So that means 10 meters is not open because the ionosphere isn't ionized strongly enough to propagate signals, say, above 20 megahertz. It requires a minimum of denseness in the different layers of the ionosphere to actually bounce signals, especially on higher frequencies. Higher frequencies bounce off higher in the ionosphere. And that also means that layer needs to be good enough to bounce the signal back. So in solar minimum, that's the problem. 10 meters might never be open, might not be open 90% of the time. There's other phenomena that makes the 10-meter band open than just solar activity. We're talking about lack of knowledge of some ham radar operators last Wednesday. There was actually a interesting conversation. While I was tuning the Icom IC-R30, I stumbled upon a conversation between three guys on the 2-meter band. They were actually talking about propagation. And one of the guys said, well, I didn't set up my antenna for 10 meters because since we're at the bottom of the solar cycle, it's going to be years before 10 meters actually opens up. Which is mistake number one. In 2019, like I said, sporadic E-skip and other phenomena can actually bring 10 meters and make it propagate and open. And that guy will never know. Why? Because he's single-minded on the fact that only a solar cycle peak can bring 10 meters open. One of the interesting aspects of that is that you don't even need to be at the peak of a solar cycle for 10 meters to open. Just having the sun, send just a little push of energy, a couple of sunspots, and solar flux goes to 80. 80 might seem low. It is actually low because the solar flux is technically around from 60 to 400. It might seem low, but you know what? 80 sometimes and oftentimes is enough to actually open 10 meters. Plus, in the summertime, the sporadic E-skip. I don't know. I heard a lot of stuff on 10 meters in the last year. I even heard stuff on 6 meters in the last year. That's where knowledge is important. It's not because we're at the bottom of a cycle that 10 meters cannot work. There's more to 10 meters and to upper frequency ranges than just a solar cycle. So, it's kind of interesting. Let's see here. Thank you, ERRT, for the nice comment. Got to thank you for the show. David, KJ4CM1, used to listen to Radio Caroline in the late 70s when he lived in England. When I can and want to digitize those recordings I made. You know, a lot of us, including me, have 4-track cassettes of recordings of shortwave from the 70s, 80s. We need to bring that out and actually digitize them and share them with everybody. Glenn is receiving CHU on a 7850 in Tennessee. 7850. Do I hear it tonight? Yeah, it seems to be there. Yep. It's not very strong, but it is there. $78.50. I hear CHU Canada time signal. Tony Turtle, nice to have you here. Yeah, the ionosphere, Tony Turtle, because he says near the equator, 10 meters is open more. But we got to remember that 10 meters, that on the equator, you have more ionization of the ionosphere than here at the higher latitudes, like here in Montreal. They've taught Peskies 6925 lower sideband, which are fishermen. Linux DOS, yes, it is QRP. Have to buy an amp. No, not necessarily. You know, there are some big fans of QRP out there, and it's surprising what like 1 watt of power will bring you. You never know. Never know. Take care, Mad Boy. It was nice to have you here. Hey, Callum. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Looking forward for the new Sunspot cycle. Joseph Ickenbaum. Nice to have you here. Callum says, I think we are going to have a good summer in England with the new solar cycle. Let's hope. Radio Wave Seeker. Nice to have you here. Been a while. I got a question. My friend gave me a map. American Radio Relay League, ARRL. I am sending a photo to your email. It was printed in 88, so it's over 30 years old. Okay. And what's the question that comes with that? I'm just going to get my R30 and get my phone. I'll be back in 2 seconds, guys. Whoops. Can't find my phone. Can't find my phone. Where's my phone? I got my phone somewhere. I have my phone somewhere and I don't see it. Let me check it out here. Oh, maybe it's still in my jacket. And we are back. We are back. And we're going to talk about, you know, I've been testing it for a long time. Just one time, guys. Okay. Okay, we're back. Freezing rain warning, rainfall warning. Hey, Alan Lafferty, nice to have you here, my friend. Patrick Dubois, nice to have you here. Sorry I didn't have my phone to say hi. Nice to have you here. Just want to check out something here. Okay. Let me just check out the email. By the way, Elizabeth just emailed back and says, thank you so much. Thank you so much for answering my questions. It's really, really interesting to hear your answers. He says, you're so knowledgeable. Thank you, Elizabeth. Oh, look at that. It's nice. ARRL map from 30 years ago. This is kind of cool. This is cool. What does it say here? American Radio Relay League. Amateur radio map of the world. With all the call signs. And the information about ITU regions. Oh, this is a nice old map. Call signs of every country. Really nice. Really nice. Joseph Igenbaum says Shortwave Radio Archive. That would be awesome. Yeah, there is actually already from the Shortwave Listening Post, Thomas Witherspoon, a Shortwave Radio Archive of a lot of audio stuff. You guys need to check that out. Yeah, I've seen these maps, Radio Wave Seeker. These are the maps with all the call signs, and it gives you all the detail about the call signs. The ITU regions, because all depending on where you are in the world, the amateur radio bands are not all the same length. For example, in Europe, 80 meters is 3,500 to 3,800. In North America, it goes up to 4,000. So knowing all of that is interesting. It's really it's a nice map, and it's probably for the most part, still pretty accurate because it hasn't changed that much since then. But it's kind of cool. Thanks for sharing, Radio Wave Seeker. Yvonne, nice to have you here. Hi, Cholakov. Nice to have you on board. Jersey Bounds are earring 7850 in New Jersey. Cool. WOHP 1390. I scan 10-meter FM repeater channels all the time. Often a repeater in Dallas will ID and be strong here in Ohio. There has to be stations on the band for it to work. Absolutely. Absolutely. There has been some changes, that's for sure. But, it always is better to have the latest, best maps. That's for sure. David, 2 seconds. Now a word from our sponsor. Paul the Cat is going to be here. Kimberly, K6YYL. Nice to have you here, my friend from California. So, no, it's nice. It's really nice to have all of that stuff and that information. And really, really cool to have everybody here. Really, really cool to have all of you here. Just looking at my emails. If anybody has said anything or posted anything that I need to talk about, it's okay. We've pretty much gone through all of it. And okay. Linux DOS Asia. Little Woman says you need to tell here what antenna to get for her new Sangean AM/FM radio. You know what? AM radio has probably already a ferrite within it. For the FM part, you don't need that much. If you got a an old FM, an old TV rabbit ear antenna or something, it's actually perfect for FM radio. But you don't need that much. Really don't need that much. I would be the kind of guy to put like a little piece of wire off of it, and that's it, hanging from the back. But on the On the AM band, it probably has a little ferret inside it already. Just hope that there's not too much interference in your location. Bobby Burgess got a conversation on channel 30 CB. I'm going to be listening tonight. You know what? There's this guy here. He's not very strong, so I don't know where he is. But there's this guy that I hear, and I've noticed at least 2 or 3 Fridays in the past 2 or 3 months. He actually airs shortwave radio interval signals on the CB channels for an hour and a half. So he must be a shortwave listener. I'd be so fascinated if that guy was actually, would know that I exist and knows that I'm here. Because it'd be just fun to know that. But he's very weak. And he seems to, there's no channel I can say he's there. He's always, moving around the different channels. But I've heard him at least 2 or 3 times. 3 times in the past 3 months, roughly. Kimberly has been working on Meteor Scatter 10 meters. Including today. Cool. What else do we have? You're not clumsy, Callum. John Engstrom, nice to have you here from Sweden. Bill says, weather, keep Paul inside. Don't worry, Paul knows when to go outside or not. You should have seen that. It was so funny. I didn't have time to make a video. We had a small episode of freezing rain. I don't know, 2 weeks ago, something like that. So not a lot, but enough that the back balcony was ice and the steps were all ice in the stairs. He actually advanced to the edge of the balcony and put one paw on the steps, and his paw would just slip like this. And it was like, yeah, I think you better come back inside. You're gonna fall 3 stories high, and I don't want that. I don't want you to hurt yourself. The only thing holding him on the balcony, I think, was that his claws from his back paws were actually in the balcony. But in the front, he doesn't have his claws. It was just slipping away like this. It was just really funny, actually, to see. Plus Zero. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The ARRL still have laminated maps like that. Absolutely. ARRL does. Absolutely. They still sell those. These are very nice. My sister, when she was a ham in the 80s, had one of these big maps on the wall of her shack. And I still remember. I have the image in my head. I would wish that we could have some machine that you plug in your brain and we could bring out the images that we see. Because I still have that image of the shack, the Yesu radio, and apparently I got no viruses according to my computer. And I have this image. I would love to have a printout. It'll always stay here. It will always stay here. No, Linux DOS, but not that I know of. I don't know why there was all that I don't know, all that blocking unblocking thing. I don't know. Dave Tot has a bit of activity on 27385. Yeah, there has been some changes. That's for sure. Vault says, judging from WhisperNet, 15 meters open, 10 meters potty. Glenn Zeckman is on 7374.5. 7374. I actually got some music on 7375. Pagemaster, Took 4 sample tests for general license exam online. Results 88, 91, 95, 95. Took 2 extra exams as well, 90, 95. I never study for the extra exam, but passed these tests. Cool, because you got enough knowledge. Bill, what is your email address? So if you want to send me something that you want to show off about or talk about or anything, the official Shortwave Radio at gmail.com is the email. You can send me a little hello or just, you know, send a picture or something you want to show. And of course, the Yahoo email is the one for the donations only. Let's go down. Let me just go down. Sorry, guys. A little quiet. Yeah, there's some music. 73, 75, actually. Madrio DXer. Yes, that guy on CB band is not every Friday. But since I've heard him the first time, I've been like monitoring from time to time. And I've heard him at least 3 times. He gets on and he, you know, I just leave the SDR here because I see when his signal pops up. He's in AM mode. He's not very strong, so I don't know where it is. But he plays shortwave interval signals, and some of them are really from old times. It is mysterious. I find it so weird. Next time I hear the guy, I'm gonna actually try to post a video and show you. At least 3 times I've heard the guy. And some, you know, I've took my CB, I've took some of my walkie-talkies trying to say, hey, you listening? You hear me? And there's no answer back. Take care, Joe Rodman, N9JCQ. Rufus Newt, nice to have you here from Laurentian Valley, Ontario. Callum says, we got a cat. They know when to go outside. They're the best weather forecasts. Radio Wave Seeker, you're right. People choose dogs, but cats choose people. Mine sure did choose people. Thank you, Vaults. Yes, I will, Mad Radio DXer. Last time it happened, I was at the last 10 minutes, and he stopped. Because I was, like, coming here and preparing my SDR and everything. Last time I heard him, actually, I was with my portable radio. And I decided to just go through, do a scan of the CB band. And he was on, I don't remember, like, channel 15 or something. But I definitely want to record that, because he's got... All he does is interval signals. No voice, no nothing. Well, there's voice of like the ID of the station. So you'll put on like the Radio Sweden interval signal. Then you'll have an ID of Radio Sweden from the station. And he posts, like he'll have that maybe 10, 15 times in a loop. And then it stops. And a couple of minutes after, whoops, comes back and he'll have another station, interval signal, and a loop. Sometimes I notice he kind of jumps on different frequencies. So I just look at the SDR here and it's like, oh, he was on 15, now he's on channel 30, or it's just so weird. I would like to know who that guy is, honestly. Yeah, gray line propagation. Absolutely, Linux DOS is great. Radio Wave Seeker. Things were so good here last night. I actually had 6.9 on Fort Collins, 2.5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 megahertz. Gotta love the MLA30. Mickey Dalmage, 7375 is parallel 7355 Radio Marti, big signals. Yeah, it's in Spanish right now. It's cool, Callum. We all have our way of seeing the world. That's nice. Joseph, I think the one on CB30 must actually have a pretty strong transmitter. Getting in Northern California. Wow, okay. Yeah, one of those that has a lot of power, for sure. Dogs have an owner, cats have a staff, says Bill. Oh, man. AB. Depends on what type of sats that you want. Callum, Linux DOS, what's on 7411? I've got nothing really. Got a little very weak signal on 7410, but I don't have anything else here. Mad Radio DX, they're also show. Is that Jewish station that was local still on the air? If yes, does it play the call Israel interval signal? It is still, I believe. It's 1650. Let's check it out right now. So yeah, it's still there.
Indwelling, he wants total possession. And God will never be satisfied with anything less than total possession. Listen, you and I will...
With some God talk. But yeah, 1650 seems to be still there. When they had the Call Israel news bulletins, both in French and English, it's not they didn't have the interval signal. But if you listen to Call Israel in the past on shortwave, you know when they have the news, they have that little theme song, if you want. They have the that theme song, but I don't recall ever hearing the interval signal from Call Israel itself. And for those that wonder what we're talking about, nostalgia time. Nostalgia time. Oops. Okay, let's start it again. Call Israel. It was Call Israel's interval signal. Very very harsh. You know, it's like it sounds kind of rough. Radio Wave Seeker finally got the PL310 ET, and that has become my go-to for portables. Radio is so amazing. How do you like your 310? I know this radio really is an ET, but man, it's a fun radio. You know, all of the PL 310, 310 ET, 380, all these smaller, all these Texan receivers are actually quite fun. They're really nice sized. You gotta love that easy tuning mode. It's really a lot of fun to use, and they're great all around radios to just like, you know, have and bring along for sure. Glenn says put his MLA30 up about 30 feet above the house here yesterday. Cool. 45 unit. Nice to have you on board. Yeah, Neil Perth of Resh. Absolutely. Lee Burkett, you got MS-DOS box on your laptop and an Amiga emulator. Cool. I got an Amiga 500 right here. right here. Radio Seeker says, I asked Jill about Rush since it's Canadian, but I don't think he is a fan. No, I'm not a big fan. I know Rush. There's a few songs I like, but I've never been a big fan. Hey, Fastlow, nice to have you here. Yeah. Commodore computers. Oh, man. Linux DOS, true QRP is fun. Yeah. Oh yeah, Mad Radio DX are absolutely Radio Tirana from the time of the Cold War was pretty harsh. Do I have it here? That's harsh. That is harsh. Different from today. Whoops. I got 2 Radio Tiranas going. What the hell's happening? Both of them are going on together. Whoa. Stop. So, the one today is very, the one today is almost sad, I feel. The feel of the new one is almost sad. It's almost sad. Sheldon Harvey, CJRS, formerly Radio Shalom 1650 in Montreal, is now, oh, it changed. Okay, so now it's there's no more Jewish community anything on it. So it's now CKZW, Le Son Gospel du Québec. That's why they're having that religious stuff right now. So there's absolutely no more Jewish community thing on 1650, Sheldon? Because I know you know that the Montreal market a lot more than me. I almost never listen. I think I've listened to 1650 like, 2 years ago last time. Rifleman 336 just passed on a modification video for the MLA30 on the official Facebook page. Cool. N8UCN. Sheldon says, same owner, but he turned over the station to this religious group. Okay. Oh, interesting. Radio Wave Seeker. Shortwave isn't dying, but it is losing some soul. I wish Shortwave was exactly the same as you experienced as a child. That would be so cool. Imagine today with all of that, the stations that were back in the 80s, and we're having live shows. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Fred Rodnick, missed what you said about the PL-ET radio, or the PL310ET, which is a nice little portable receiver, Fred. TB900, nice to have you here. Jersey Bound, is your SDR compatible with a MacBook? I think it works if you have something like Parallels or some kind of emulator for running Windows within your Mac. I'm not sure it's totally compatible with a MacBook. I know that the next version 2.0 or something that they want to do a version that will be Windows, Mac, and Linux. So we'll check that out. Hey, Eugene, RD9W. Nice to have you here. From, I guess, Russia. Radio Seeker loves his Texan 310 ET. Great buy. Yeah, and, for the price, it's just amazing. Just amazing. Mad Radio DX says, was going to say the same thing about the post-Cold War Tirana. It's almost You know, it's like if the new Tirana interval signal is sad about the fact that the old Radio Tirana interval signal doesn't exist anymore. 9690 on his Yachtboy 400. Oh man, a Grundig Yachtboy 400. I owned one for a while. Nice little radio. Yeah, Spain, 9690. Still coming in really well. Absolutely. Sheldon, there's a little bit of Jewish programming still on the station, but very limited. You know, when they came on the air, I don't know if you ever heard it, Sheldon, but when they came on the air, I'm a curious guy. I when something new is on the AM band or whatever, I'll tune it a little bit and see what's there. And I was surprised because at noon, exactly every day, they would have the Kol Israel news bulletin. It was like 15 minutes. And they had the English and the French one following each other. And I always thought it was kind of cool. You know, it was like, at that time, Kol Israel was off shortwave. And I found it kind of cool that I could still listen to the Kol Israel news bulletins through their station. Linux DOS 7790, playing old rock. It must 7780 that you're probably having. It's WRMI. Yeah. That's WRMI. 7780 is the frequency Linux DOS. Did you see my old 11 meters SSB station and AM station picture from 82? You sent it through email? Let me just check it out here. I am not getting any new emails right now. What else do we have? Radio Seeker had the RCR play RSP1A, but quit it because I hated listening to radio while I was sitting at the computer. That's probably the number one complaint of an SDR. Honestly. That's a lot of people. A lot of people are off, SDRs because of that reason, honestly. Bill, RSP1A right now is not... okay, Danny Shortwave Radio DX is on the Mac. You can use RSP1A with cubic SDR. But I have heard a lot of people talk about cubic SDR as not being the best software possible. But I would use Parallels, or I would use virtual. What's that free one? Virtual. Anyways, that Windows virtual software where you can run a Windows version within your Mac and run the SDR through there. Unfortunately, the biggest problem with any SDR is that the best SDR software is still Windows only. Most of them are Windows only. But I know that they are working on version 2 for SDR Play devices that would be would be available for Windows, Mac, and Linux, which would be fantastic, honestly. Radio Wave Seeker. You're talking about the fact that there's no more shortwave broadcasts in Australia. Do you imagine how possibly a lot of the shortwave broadcasts would be really helpful right now in many areas where the power's out because the fire has destroyed, the power stations and all of that? I don't know, but man, Linux DOS, the Rabbit Ears are going to work great. Man Radio DXer, the call network has been disbanded by Israeli government and replaced by KAN network. I didn't know that. KW1161 MacBook software GQRX and Qubit SDR will work with, on one station only. Okay, so in the SDR Player website, they do talk about it. Thanks for the info. Bobby Burgess got GQRX and Qubit SDR on Mint as well. So, you know, there are alternatives. That's for sure. Ordered an R108 in a week. Waiting. You're going to have a lot of fun. Yeah, that's the problem. And you know what? If they do what they say, when SDR Uno will be available for both Mac and Linux, man, that's going to change, literally, the world of SDR software for these two platforms. Radio Wave Seeker. Professionally, if you had to monitor radio, like for a job, nothing would be better than an SDR. But relaxing says turn a knob in the dark and listen. I'm weird. You're not weird. There's something about that is kind of fun and cool. It's like when you have a... One, you want to have a, tuning around a tube radio, yes, whoops. There's an Icom right here. There's another Icom right here. Quickly, I just want to mention, so this is my good old trusty IC-R30. And so this week, well, yesterday actually, I got this upgraded version, which is the IC-R30, and been testing it. It's still very early for me to say anything. My first observations is that the shortwave reception on the R30 is a little better than the R20. My other observation is that the R30 seems to overload as much as the R20. My observation is that one of the two receivers in the R30 seems to be deaf compared to the two receivers of the R20. So the R20's two receivers seem to be pretty equal in reception quality. On the R30, and I've been fiddling a lot with it because I've been wondering, it's been kind of bothering me. One of the two VFOs is more sensitive than the other. And I mean, not like it's just a small thing. It's by a huge margin. It'll miss some frequencies that the R20 doesn't miss on both VFOs. So there are frequencies that I tune to that I need to be on VFO B, because it's more sensitive than VFO A, and the RF gain at 0, the at maximum, the attenuator is off. I find that a little weird, and there's something I'm wondering about it. So there's a few observations. It's fun because it has D-Star, NXDN, P25 decoding stuff. The only digital mode I've been actually decoding since I got it yesterday is D-Star and ambands. I've been enjoying kind of tuning that, which is kind of fun. Anyways, the frequency coverage is the same as the R20. The display, unfortunately, there's one thing that I hate about it. The contrast isn't super with the background lighting. It's kind of just a little washed out, if you want. So there's a few things like that, but I do like the fact that the display is bigger. There's a GPS in here. There's a lot of stuff. Anyways, there's a lot to learn. Just like on the R20. The R20, there was a lot to learn about it. This thing has a lot for me to learn about it also. So I'm not going to say any one is better than the other right now, because I will continue my tests, and I'll be showing side-by-side tests of signals and reception of different things. Shortwave on here, and the VHF UHF channel, we have tons of videos of VHF UHF signals that we're comparing on both. And finally, the fact that it has an SMA connector for the R30. I will, of course, be putting the MLA30 loop on this for HF and be looking at all of that. I also have my mobile vertical. I'm going to do tests and compare how well they receive each other. So, you know, continuing the tests, and I will have results. But, you know, 24 hours is not enough for me to really give any verdict. There are some observations I already see from just using it. But, you know, we'll slowly get there. Vaults. My experience tells me that software that is written for a specific platform at very least has better or more consistent graphic user interface than multi-platform ones. Yeah, and that happens quite often, but let's hope that they can do it really, really well. Rob, thank you for your live shows. I know it takes you a lot of work and time and your weekly radio video uploads, reading and listening to our questions and talking about several topics. Well, I'm here for that. That's the reason we are here. And yeah, you know, I mean, 3 hours. You know, I do 3-hour shows regularly, and which, you know, it's kind of a minimum. Most of the, it didn't happen very often. I did less than 3 hours. It doesn't happen very often. And, you know, that's why, you know, you got to think. If you like what I do, donations are welcome. I mean, you know, I'm here all the time, and I know you guys love what's happening here and being as a gang together, and we talk about radio, you know. It's always cool. What else do we have? Shiny SDR. I didn't even know that there's something called Shiny SDR. Hey, Lee Burkett. See you next week. Always fun to have you here. Good luck, sex sleep in the morning? Oh, man. Radio Wave Seeker, goodbye. Take care, my friend. It was nice to have you here. Eddie Essex, nice to have you here. R30 looks like a Nokia phone from the 90s. On my Facebook wall, when I posted a video of my R30, I don't know how many comments I got about people saying, it looks like an old cell phone. And you know what? It does. It does. But honestly, I always thought the R20 was kind of sexy. But when you compare the R30, it now makes my R20 really look old. It actually kind of gives an old feel to my R20 now. You know, if I turn it on with the display, really kind of makes my my R20 look old now, and the R30 looks more modern. So it's kind of interesting. It is kind of interesting. So, anyways, it's a lot of fun to play around with these radios. You know, I'm very lucky to have great fans that actually send these radios. Oh, man. What else do we have? Let's check it out here. Radio Seeker bought a Texan CR1100 on one of your reviews. The what? Yes, I will. I will. It sounds, when the signal quality is just a little off the edge, it sounds so robotic. When the signal's very clear, it sounds kind of natural. But it's the only mode that I actually have decoded yet. Yesterday afternoon and just before the show, there was a couple of hams talking on 70 centimeter band, 446 megahertz, and we were using D-Star. So kind of nice. Take care, Sheldon Harvey, and let's hope that the storm is not too bad. And if it is, and I'll be happy to be filling in for the International Radio Report on Sunday morning. Don't go out and in that crazy weather if it's too bad. Well, I'll handle it. Most of it will be walking on this street up to the subway, which will probably be a big experiment, and then going up that little hill and up to CKUT, which will be probably even worse. Gustavo Pinto catching WWVH Hawaii at 15 megahertz in southern Brazil. Amazing. Well, if you are hearing a female voice, Gustavo, it's Hawaii. If it's a male voice, it's Colorado. Take care, Bill. It was nice to have you on board. See you next time. Remember, we have 2 shows a week. One on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, 0 UTC. One on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, 20 UTC. Remember, we have a great Facebook page, which is the same name as this channel, Official SWL Channel. Official SWL Channel. A great extension to this live feed. Yeah, it'd be nice. Shiny SDR. Never heard that one. Joseph used to have a Windows machine, loved SDR Uno. Haven't found anything even close. Yeah. Radio Stereo España 9690. That's where I'm at right now. No, I'm not 7780, but 9690 was strong earlier. And still is quite strong. 9690. Eyebrawler. Nice to have you here. The SDR Play devices have 50 ohm antenna inputs. I would like to use a TV antenna for VHF, UHF. The coax is 75. Will this affect reception? The higher in frequency you will be, the higher the effect will be, because there's a mismatch of the of the antenna, so there's kind of a loss. If you're listening at 30 megahertz, that loss is very low. But as you go higher and higher, you will see that the loss is more and more evident. It really affects the UHF range and up. But try it. Try it. Fast Load says R30 is tempting, but I already have the R20 and TRX1. Well, the R20 and the TRX1 together, they actually cover what an R30 is. So you better, if I would be you, I would keep that. Plus the fact that TRX1 does do more digital modes than the R30, I think. So you're better off like having the R20 and TRX1 together as a team for radio than just an R30. Actually, what would have been fun is that the TRX1 would be a wideband communications receiver. The TRX1 is actually a scanner radio with digital mode. So you complete it with the communications receiver side with an R20. Bobby Burgess would never have a scanner or shortwave receiver with SSB. Does anyone have one they are giving away? NS360PS, nice to have you here from Australia. Hope it's not too bad down there. Hope you're in a part of Australia that isn't too problematic. It's crazy what's happening down there. V3KRP, Vest Eddie in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Nice to have you here. Pretty cool. Honestly, it's a communication standard for amateur radio. Honestly, my take of Vaults. D-Star is a digital mode that was done, and there's some D-Star repeaters. I think it's for the advancement of technology. Can anybody, I don't know enough about D-Star to really talk about benefits. I know it exists. I've decoded it on that radio. Decoding it on that radio kind of showed me that sometimes when the signal's not strong, it's kind of robotic. What would actually be a advantage, a benefit of having D-Star? I don't see it, but why? And it is a very close standard, absolutely. But it's the most popular, from what I see, it's the most popular amateur standard for digital right now, voice. So I don't know. I'm apart from being hiding yourself from the majority of regular scanner radios that cannot decode D-Star. I don't see the benefit of D-Star. ComXZ76 says, is it possible to hear both female and male voices overlapping? Because I've heard both of them at the same time. Absolutely. When propagation is good, you might hear both female and male voices. It happened to me many, many times. Cool, Gustavo, Colorado. Radio comms. Nice to have you here. IC-R30 tried and tested in deserts of Afghanistan. Icom chatter, bulletproof. What's nice about the R30 is that it is also military grade and is IP57. I can drop this radio in a lake and pick it up and it's still working. It's good for 1 meters underwater for 30 minutes. And the funniest thing is, they were saying if this is, if you had some salt water, from the ocean on it, it's so funny because they say just dip the radio in regular water and then wipe it off. It's like, yeah, it's the first time I read a radio manual that says dip your receiver in water for 15 seconds and then just wipe it off. It's going to be okay, It's pretty crazy. V3KRP, it's cold. Here it's kind of warm, actually. It's now, it's +2, which is like about 35 Fahrenheit. Dr. Reginaldo E. Ramos Teodoro. Geek Nerd here. Happy Saturday to you and all the followers. What's the beer? It's Fin du Monde, like I usually have. Achieved a goal yesterday. I went to High Mountain here in Israel, the highest, and I could listen to various radio stations that otherwise was impossible because of interference. It was great. Thanks, Jill. It was a long, long time since I had such pleasure. You need to go, to a place like that to finally enjoy radio sometimes because of the noise and everything. But you know what? You got to take it as a fun thing. As today I'm going out to the countryside. I'm going out somewhere, enjoying beautiful weather and radio at the same time, which is kind of cool. And it is a lot of fun all the time. Nice to have you here. Bro Weaver, yeah, D-Star is Icom. I know. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's one thing that's true. David, KJ4CMY, it has a very narrow bandwidth on FM. So you can actually have more communications going on in a narrow band of frequency with D-Star. That is something that I remember reading. So thanks, David, for mentioning that. So that would be a advantage. The narrow bandwidth of D-Star on FM. Linux DOS Fusion versus D-Star and DMR. I think Fusion is easier. Isn't Fusion the Yaesu thing? This gets DMR also. It gets it doesn't get Fusion though. Bro Weaver says, so you can use D-Star to check your email. Well, there's a lot of stuff you can actually. So when somebody broadcasts on D-Star, you do have a tag that appears here. So there could be all sorts of things that would actually be working through that, including all sorts of you can actually do all sorts of things like email probably. Mad Raider DXer, if the Icom IC-R30 looks like the 90s Nokia phone, then I can play Snake well with it. I'd like that. You know what? For the joke part, they should have added that to the Icom IC-R30. Nothing's on the radio. I'm playing Snake. You know, the problem with... because open standards, of course, are a lot better. I mean, it's always free. And when you have things like D-Star, you got to have specific receivers. You know, these companies, Icom is, a pretty powerful player in amateur radio. So they can actually just push their own standard and say, hey, that's the standard. And they sell so many radios that at some point everybody's like, yeah, okay, we'll use D-Star. David says, my Icom IC-R30 is also tough. I've had it for about 11 years. I already purchased it to listen to airband comms and so on. And it's like new minus a wear not keyboard. Yeah. Well, my R20 went through pretty much. It fell down to the floor many times. The screen is a little scratched because it kind of is a little. It kind of comes out just a little bit, so when you actually brush it on the surface, it actually has scratches on the surface. But honestly, I've this thing fell to the floor so many times, and it still works. So I guess quality construction is pretty good. Also, one of the things that's interesting about the R30, which I was surprised, is that it's actually made in Japan. This is one of the radios still made in Japan. That also is surprising. I would have thought they would took the R30 and make it in China or something. But no, it's made in Japan. One thing that maybe I would say is a little sad is that the battery life of the R30 is not as big as long as the R20. But then again, it has a million things inside it. There's a GPS working all the time and so on. Well, you can turn it off, but it's a pretty, it's a nice radio. Honestly, it's a really nice radio. Max S. Strong, my Icom R7000 built like a tank. Beautiful radio, can bring myself to sell it. I will never sell. Well, you can never say never, as they say, but I will never sell any radios anymore. I sold radios. I regret selling so many of the radios that I sold in the past. I would love to have all of these now in my collection today. I miss a lot of the old radios that I sold. I can tell you that. So, how sensitive it is with the whip antenna. It's actually interesting because yesterday my first reflex was to tune in on HF. So here's what I'm going to do. Here it goes. 9.690. Oops. Let me just go here. I'm going to go to VFOA. Okay. 9.690. So it's very noisy here. And I will see if I can put it in AM mode. It's very noisy. But within the noise, I can actually hear Radio Exterior de España on 9690 on it. You know what? I'm going to do an experiment right now. Let's remove let's remove this antenna. And we're going to try out. If I put the RSP1A's MLA30 loop, of course, on it, it's going to be interesting to see if I'm getting, oh wow, yeah, really well. I am getting that's Radio Exterior de España 9690 coming in really well, and I can actually go to AM narrow to narrow it a little bit, but really nice. Interesting, because it's the first time that I'm plugging in the MLA30 on the R30. Let's try 5505. Oops. Put myself in upper sideband. Oh, look at that. 5505. Shannon Vomit. So it's kind of interesting. But yesterday, because the answer goes back to the telescopic whip, yesterday I was in my living room, and in the first 5 minutes, I tuned to 15 megahertz. I tuned to WWV, and I could easily hear it on in my living room. And then I actually, with the telescopic, went on my IC-R30, my older one. This one would not pick it up. This one did. So it seems to have an edge to receive better on HF. So this is kind of cool. Little experiment. And here we go. Putting the antenna back on the RSP1A. What else we have? Bro Weaver. Around here, people use D-Star to avoid the scanner listeners. They usually use D-Star to report tornadoes and Ecoms. You know, when I was listening to some of the hams earlier this afternoon, for me, and they were talking about sensitive stuff, and for me, I had the impression they were using D-Star so that regular scanner users can't listen on their conversations. At the SX, the DV Mega Cast does D-Star, Fusion, and DMR on the same radio. Also cross modes to NXDN. My Icom 9700 can send pictures on D-Star. Oh, cool. That's cool. Callum says, Shell, do you think Longwave is the best for broadcasting? It's, one of those bands, and it's kind of fun, and it's kind of cool. The best, I wouldn't say. I think every band is great. I wouldn't say one is better than the other, but it's just great. WF7i Homebrew, nice to have you on board. Happy Friday. Trog Zorgvin, nice to have you here from Durango, Colorado. Shortwave listening for life. Dr. Reginaldo says, I don't know if it's possible, but is there any kind of filter to reduce noise in, a city? Not really. You could use a magnetic loop that will kind of naturally filter it out by the way that it receives, but unfortunately, there's, the only thing you can do most of the time is to move away from the noise sources. Valls could argue that D-Star is a form of encryption, which is prohibited in most countries on the ham bands. Well, it's not an encryption. There's a difference between digital and encryption. There is a difference. You know, here in Canada, we're not allowed. The regulations here in Canada is that if signal is encrypted, you are not allowed to decrypt it. It's forbidden. It's not meant for you. So they make a difference between encryption and digital. So you know. Roll Weaver says some hams are using P25. Honestly, before the show started, I heard these hams on D-Star. They were talking about something that was... they were actually talking about drugs. First thing came to my mind is, okay, you're talking about drugs on amateur radio bands. Isn't there kind of something better to talk about? That's the first idea that came to my mind. The second one was, are you using D-Star so you can talk about that shit without nobody or almost no one listening in? I don't know. Icom IC-R30, strange, I'm picking up hams radio in Spanish on 15.001. Well, it's not impossible. You might be hearing pesquis or something there, but you might also have... What radio are you using, Icom IC? Because you might have an image from the... What you might be having is an image from the 20-meter band. Maybe some strong ham in Spanish is in the 20-meter band, and you're receiving that image there at 15 megahertz. Now, like David says, D-Star is not encrypted. It's just a digital mode. Row Weaver, P25 is the same as police use, so they just switch on encryption and keep things private. There's a repeater near Chicago with users that use encryptions. Isn't there... But, wait. Isn't there a regulation that in the ham radio rules that doesn't want that encryption is forbidden? Anybody know the rules enough? I'm not gonna swear, but somewhere I've read that encryption on the ham bands is forbidden. Oh, VirtualBox. That's the one I was searching for earlier. VirtualBox. Because Parallels and VMware are not free. VirtualBox is the free one. So cool. Nice to have you on board, Keegan, and know that you're safe. Cool, Callum. Nice that you enjoy Longwave. Chuck, thanks for the HF on web demo. Could you take it down to the medium wave band and tune a few local AM stations? Yeah, on the AM station side, it is, you can turn on, so right now, on the AM station side, it is, so dot, 0.800. It uses an internal ferrite. And I know that I've already read a review where the ferrite inside it is apparently not that great. So this is a local AM station that is CJ80-800.
He'll have you say or perhaps suggest things that will come back to haunt you at the negotiating table. Listen, you say what you will about public servants. They have a union. We have a process for establishing... Because don't forget, these forms are not, sort of airy, hypothetical.
800 kilohertz medium wave. Let's go even lower. This one might use the antenna, I don't know. I'm hearing a buzz, but I'm not hearing any I'm hearing buzzes, but I'm not hearing any non-directional beacons. So let's try. So you see, for example, I'm on 880. I'm not hearing WCBS New York, which normally should be coming in right now. So, but I did read a review that said that the AM ferrite inside the R30 is not very good at receiving medium wave, and that you're better. So through the menu, you could actually switch off the ferrite and use the antenna for medium wave and long wave, which I guess would be better. So, but at least we heard really well the local station CJ80 800. Yes, David. Callum is a great fan of long wave. Michael B, nice to have you here. 5505 works here too. Magical. All the best from Warsaw, Poland. Nice to have you here. DX Commander, nice to have you on board. Thanks for the nice comments. Keegan says power knocked off for a few seconds by lightning. Cool. Gustavo Pinto, great to see R30 going well on HF. Mine is coming in 1-2 weeks. We're going to be able to talk about it and compare, Gustavo. Cool. Pretty cool. Linux DOS, you're right, Jill. 7780S9 in New Brunswick. Bro Weaver. Jill, hams talk about drugs all the time on 40 meters. Yeah, I know. But here it's not even, here it was like illegal drugs. I'm not talking about, whatever drug from your doctor. They were talking about crack cocaine. It was that bad. So Callum is in Sheffield, England. KMXZ76 using the RSP1A. That's weird. So maybe you're hearing something. Yeah, that's what I thought, Fastload. Encryption is not permitted on the AM bands. David confirms also, encryption is not allowed on the AM bands. Digital is fine. Encryption is forbidden. Okay, that's what I thought. So that's why you can use P25 digital, but they cannot encrypt. They are illegal if on a repeater of some sort they become encrypted. Yeah, I think it's everywhere that the encryption is forbidden. TV Radio 72, getting CB activity. Let's check it out. 27025. Anything here? Oh yeah, there is. There is. Channel 6, 27025 is active. Wow, that one was strong on 27285. Man, so there's some skip tonight. Like Fastload says, bottom line, you can't hide on ham radio unless you're a government or stupid. I would say that there's a lot of that second choice. Oh, so there's some skip tonight happening right now. Bro Weaver, one of our missions in ham radio is to be the backup communications in times of national disasters. It seemed like we should be on P25 like our public safety partner. But P25, I believe, is accepted as a... P25 is, by the way, an open standard. And P25 can be used on the ham bands. It's just that you can't use P25 encrypted. Because P25 can be unencrypted or encrypted. Keegan says 800 kilohertz over there is KQCV in Oklahoma City. Or CKLW in Windsor, Ontario, depending on the day. The ex-commander says, I got a 400 kilowatt transmitter 15 miles from here on the 198. That, yeah, that's pretty tough. No problem, Chuck. Was happy to do it. And I'll post a lot of videos anyways on the channel about medium wave, long wave, and all this stuff. Matambali, R30 plus MLA30 sounds fun on your next away mission to the park. Yes, absolutely. It does. Brian Weidenheimer, nice to have you on board. David, the IC-R30 also has a menu option to toggle in between the built-in, tiny, ferrite coil stick antenna or the SMA connector. And yes, sensitivity-wise, the ferrite feels more like an afterthought. Yeah. Joseph says there's no Channel 6 in California, so it might be an East Coast thing. Trog Zorgven says, I am a shorter listener who has long enjoyed monitoring the ham bands, rag chewing sessions, tech talk. I'm studying to get my ticket this year. Cool. Cool. I'll try to make a good goal on my side, too, to get my ticket. Absolutely. The ex-commander, and with the Christmas lights now switched off, my noise level is only S7 on 80 meters. Not perfect, but very good. Pretty good compared to late December. Cool. Curry, is there any... there's a way to view the audio bandwidth of a station you're listening to on SDR Uno. Well, what you could do is simply, because there's the audio part where you can actually expand, and you'll see by looking at it roughly pretty much how much audio bandwidth they're already using. So hey guys, I've been on for 3 hours and 20 minutes. I hope you enjoyed the show today. I will be taking it easy for the rest of the day. Remember, there's paypal.me/shortwave. Or if you're on PayPal, you can go to this email and send me a little something. If you like the shows, if you like what I do, please consider a little something to help me out. And patreon.com/radio and computers to become one of my patrons. So hope that you enjoyed the show today. We are here twice a week. Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, 0 UT. Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, 20 UT. Hope you enjoy the shows. Rifleman, do you go to any radio club meetings? My club has a monthly meeting tomorrow. Obviously, you can't attend in Northwest Ohio, but just wondering. The only club meetings that I go to are the twice annual Canadian International DX Club meetings. So there's one in the summer barbecue where we do a live show from Greenfield Park Barbecue. And there's, of course, the Christmas dinner that we go to that was a couple of weeks back. So these are pretty much the only meetings that I go to. So thanks everybody for being great fans, for being here. It's always nice to be on board. I think tonight I'm going to have fun with the Icom IC-R30. Might even have fun with the IC-R30 on the MLA30 loop. Thanks Kevin, Jane Apollo for the R30 donation. It's greatly appreciated. And it's really, really a lot of fun. Stay safe, everybody. And so nice to be here. DX Commander. I'll try to see if I can join you tomorrow. I'll try to remember and try to join in tomorrow if I can, my friend. So take care, everybody. Love you all. Stay safe. And see you Wednesday or Friday if you can't make it on Wednesday. So bye-bye, everybody. Have a great weekend. Here is going to be a hell of a weekend with the high storm and everything.